Chapter 1537. Outside Thousand Wine Mountain, under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the sky shuttle formation completely enveloped the huge mountain peak. Silver lines drifted slowly and silently, the entire myriad wine mountain was completely cut apart. The blood-colored frost that covered the mountain peak started to melt and seep into the ground bit by bit. Everyone waited in silence, staring at the spring on the mountain peak. The water rippled, but there was no movement at all. And the two figures they wanted to see did not appear again. Time seemed to be especially unbearable. A ray of light shone through the thick clouds and shone on the ground. Everything seemed to have lifted the black veil and revealed its original appearance. Elder Bo Yen looked up in a daze. It was daybreak. This night was so long. Bo Yen, the frost on the surrounding mountains has all melted. Elder Hua Feng's voice was a little hoarse. Elder Bo Yen looked in the direction he was pointing. Indeed, under the powerful suppression of the sky shuttle formation, the blood-colored frost that had spread around had all disappeared. Only the Thousand Wine Mountain still had some scattered frost. There was more around the spring on the mountain peak, but it seemed that it would not last much longer. The sky shuttle formation also looked smaller than before. It started to gather all the surrounding power to the center and focus on dealing with the remaining frost. At this time, the silver lines basically only covered the Thousand Wine Mountain. But, the Thousand Wine Mountain was now riddled with holes and was unrecognizable. It was no longer a mountain. Instead, it was a huge stone sculpture. Its shape was twisted and strange. And what was even more shocking was that the layers of intersecting mountain rocks were still slowly rotating with the sky shuttle formation. Every line looked so elegant and bright, but it also carried a dense killing intent. They knew very well how terrifying the power of the sky shuttle formation was. Once touched, it could unquestionably kill everything, including all the living beings in it. The places where the blood-colored frost had disappeared were all charred black and still looked lifeless. One could imagine how much time and effort it would take to restore everything to its original state. What is this? Elder Bo Yen stared at the spring and could not help but mutter softly. As if suppressed by the sky shuttle formation, there was no more spring water gushing out from the spring and it returned to its original state. The water was still, and a circle of frost had condensed at the edge. But the spring water was dark black and no one could see the situation inside clearly. The gray stones piled up around them had already been crushed by the power of the sky shuttle array and shattered into countless tiny pieces. This scene made everyone's heart sank. Because the rocks around the spring were also very special. Tianlei had landed on them for many years, but they had never been damaged. Now, in front of the sky shuttle formation, they did not even have the confidence of sky shuttle formation. The situation, the two people in the spring. Elder Bo Yen rubbed the space between his brows, feeling extremely exhausted. Both of them held important statuses. Needless to say, the dean and elders had always been on good terms with the two children. After a moment of silence, he looked at the other elders. He named a few people. You guys stay here first. The rest of you go back and rest. After a night of torment, everyone was already exhausted. Even for Wanzheng and the rest, they were merely relying on their willpower to forcefully hang on. Once the sky shuttle formation is activated, it will continue to operate for a month. In this month, there will be people guarding here every day. So in this month, we cannot let down our guard. We have to be careful, understand? In other words, this was a battle of attrition. If they all collapsed the next day, all their efforts might be for naught. Hearing Elder Bo Yan's words, the other elders knew the pros and cons and nodded in agreement. Also, when you go back, remember to calm the students down. Elder Bo Yen sighed in his heart. Although the chaos at Thousand Wine Mountain did not cause many casualties, it was inevitable that the students would be hesitant and worried. During this period of time, Lingxiao Academy was in constant trouble, which was enough to make people worried. Plus this time, in this month, no one is allowed to enter or leave the college as they wish. Everything must be reported to me and I will personally approve it. The elders were shocked. But on second thought, this was a special period, so there was nothing wrong with doing this. After agreeing, most of the elders went back. Only Elder Wanzheng and the others were still guarding the place. Senior Shangwan, why don't you go back and rest first? Elder Huafeng hesitated for a moment, but still spoke tentatively. We'll guard this place. Once the two of them come out, we'll tell you immediately. Shangwan Jing shook his head. I'll wait here. It's fine. You don't have to worry about me. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a faint green color under his eyes. He looked exceptionally haggard. In fact, although he was a god expert, his divine body had been asleep for 1,000 years, and his soul had drifted away. The moment he woke up, he hurriedly rushed to Lingxiao College from the northern border of the primordial world. He did not have the time to properly recuperate. His strength could not be compared to his peak back then. It was because of this that Elder Huafeng was very worried about him. Seeing Shangwan Jing's determined attitude, Elder Huafeng's lips moved, but he swallowed the rest of his words. That's good. If you have any requests, just let me know. He clenched his fists. We'll wait with you. Shangwan Jing nodded. His voice was low and slightly hoarse. Thank you. Wishful thinking. Ewen's cold mocking voice suddenly came from the side. The sky shuttle array has been activated. Even a god expert can't escape from it. Let alone those two people. Of course, he knew that Rong Xiao and Sheng Wanyu were both top geniuses of the younger generation. To be able to break through and become a god expert at such a young age, they were very rare in the entire Divine Ruins world. But so what? A god was just a god. Elder Huafeng's expression changed when he heard this. You don't have to worry about these things. Shengwan Jing pulled Elder Huafeng and looked coldly at Yiwenzhua. You're not the dean, and the power of the academy is not in your hands. It has nothing to do with Rong Xiao and you, We haven't even said anything yet. What right do you have to criticize and criticize? Yiwenzhua's expression turned cold. Previously, I gave you some face for the sake of the Spirit Firmament Academy. Don't push your luck. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1538. Shengwan Jing's words were very harsh and did not leave any face for Yiwenzhua. In front of Elder Bo Yen and the others, it was simply a slap to his face. Yiwenzhua's face was ashen. His sleeves fluttered, and he was about to attack. Senior Shengwan is a weapon refining supremacy. He has been in the Divine Ruins world for 1,000 years and has a noble status. Wenzhua, what do you mean by this? Do you want to attack? Elder Meng suddenly spoke. His tone was faint, but there was a hint of coldness. Yiwenzhua was speechless. His status as the deputy dean was indeed nothing in front of a weapon refining supremacy. One had to know that even in the entire Divine Ruins world, a weapon refining supremacy was definitely a top expert who could do whatever he wanted. Compared to a god of the same level, or even a medical supremacy, he had more right to speak. He clenched his fists tightly and swallowed his anger with great difficulty. Master, didn't you say that you came back this time to look for something at the Dongwang Bell Tower? Jun Juqing suddenly spoke, breaking the cold atmosphere. The situation at Thousand Wine Mountain has basically stabilized. With Elder Meng and the others here, you don't have to worry too much. These words gave Yiwenzhua a way out, attributing his previous sarcastic words and excessive behavior to him being worried about the academy. Ewanswo finally stopped and snorted coldly. I hope this sky shuttle array can completely solve the problem. With that, he flicked his sleeve and quickly left, heading straight for the Donghuang Bell Tower. Jun Jiuqing hesitated for a moment, looked back at Thousand Wine Mountain, and finally followed. The two figures quickly disappeared into the distance. Ewanswo was the deputy dean. Although the power to manage the academy was in the hands of Elder Bo Yen, he still had the qualifications to go to the Donghuang Bell Tower. It seems that he has accumulated a lot of resentment in the past few years. Elder Meng looked at their backs and frowned. Elder Huafeng sneered. Hasn't he always been like this? Back then, Ewanswo was determined to get the position of dean. After confirming that the position of dean was passed to his junior brother, he had not recovered for a long time. From then on, he had already developed resentment in his heart. He blamed the previous principal, who was also his master, and also blamed his junior brother, who was the current principal of the academy. A few years ago, when the dean left and passed the authority to Bo Yen, his dissatisfaction reached its peak. If it wasn't for this, he wouldn't have left the academy so decisively and not returned for several years. Moreover, during this period, he didn't care about the academy at all. Ewanswo always felt that everyone in the world had wronged him, but he never knew how to reflect on himself. He had never thought about why he had never had a share in the position of dean, and why everyone was so disgusted with him. When the academy is in danger, the first thing he thinks about is himself. Since his return, has he done anything for the academy or the students? Elder Huafeng had disliked him for a long time and had been enduring it silently. But this time, Ewanswo's attitude was truly disgusting. Those who don't know would think that he came back to laugh at us. That's enough. None of this is important right now. Elder Bo Yen seemed to be very open-minded about this matter. In the next month, the most important thing is to guard the sky shuttle array. Everyone nodded and didn't mention anything else. Elder Meng. Shengwan Jing suddenly spoke. Regarding you errors past in the academy, I wonder. Can you tell me about it? Actually, he could tell that many elders in the academy treated you, very well. But considering that Elder Meng had the highest status here and had helped him guard the divine realm for several years, it was probably the most appropriate to ask him. Elder Meng waved his hand repeatedly. You're too polite. Just call me Meng Xian. As for that girl, it's a long story. He narrowed his eyes as if he was recalling something. Speaking of you, it was actually a coincidence that she came to Lingxiao College back then. The 10,000 Wine Mountain was completely enveloped by the sky shuttle array. It was so tight that it was almost airtight. From the outside, one could only see the half mountain that had been cut into pieces and countless intertwined silver lines. In the air, there were elders guarding all directions. That terrifying cold air seemed to have been completely sealed, and it didn't cause as terrifying a commotion as before. But the students all knew that the sky shuttle array still had to be guarded for a month. So they didn't dare to let their guard down. All the students obediently stayed in their own areas, either resting or cultivating. Almost all the people who went to the Qingming Square were gone. What happened on the 10,000 Wine Mountain that day was like a heavy stone that pressed down on many people's hearts. As long as the sky shuttle array didn't completely suppress it, they couldn't be at ease. Of course, there were also some people who were more worried about Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue who were still inside. It's been 3 days. The sky shuttle array is still operating, and the frost on the 10,000 Wine Mountain is also decreasing. I don't know when they will come out. On a mountain peak, a few people from the Luo family were gathered. The person who spoke was Luo Yanming. They had originally planned to spar and cultivate together, but they weren't in the mood, so they put it aside for the time being. At this moment, their attention was still on the 10,000 Wine Mountain. Shuoxing couldn't help but scratch his head. This Rong Xiu, Chu, and Shangguanyu are all exalted gods, and Rongxiu has a divine body. They should be able to come out, right? Also, doesn't Shangguanyu have a few trump cards? Although he said that, his tone was full of uneasiness, and his eyes couldn't hide the worry in them. The two of them were indeed very powerful, and they also had extremely powerful trump cards. However, the 10,000 Wine Mountain was in big trouble this time, and it wouldn't be so easy to deal with. The 10,000 Wine Mountain should be razed to the ground in a month, right? Luo Shishi muttered absent-mindedly. The few of them fell silent. If the two of them hadn't come out by then, the sky shuttle array was so terrifying that even Elder Meng and Sheng Wanjing couldn't do anything about it. What could they do? What are those two doing? Suddenly, Shuxing's gaze focused in a certain direction. The few of them followed his gaze and saw that on the opposite mountain peak, halfway up the mountain, there were two people huddled together and talking about something. From time to time, they would even gesture with their hands. It seemed like they were discussing something. Are they? Lin Qifei and Mu Hongyu. Luo Shishi was a little surprised. Why are the two of them together? I heard that Lin Qifei was once saved by the princess of the Yuntian Tower. She should be Sheng Wanyu. Mu Hongyu is also her good friend. However, the two of them don't seem to know each other before this. Speaking of which, these two people should be the most worried about the situation on the 10,000 Wine Mountain. However, what were they doing? On the mountain opposite them, Lin Qifei looked at Mu Hongyu. Are you sure you can save them this way? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1539. Mu Hongyu sighed. I can't guarantee that it'll work. But this is the only way I can think of at the moment. Lin Qifei thought for a moment and nodded. Alright, I'll help you. He raised his hand. Please follow me. As he spoke, he led the way to the cave at the side. Mu Hongyu followed closely behind. The cave was a little dark and very quiet. But soon, Mu Hongyu realized that this cave was different from the other caves. Lin Qifei walked in front. After walking for a distance, a bright light suddenly appeared on the ground in front of him. This light illuminated the cave, and because it was some distance away from the entrance of the cave, it was not noticed by those outside. Mu Hongyu looked down curiously and realized that it was a small xian formation. I specially set up these xian formations to prevent outsiders from entering. Lin Qifei explained as he walked. Follow my steps. Don't take the wrong path. Okay. Mu Hongyu replied as she carefully followed Lin Qifei's footsteps. After walking for a while, Lin Qifei finally stopped. We're here. Mu Hongyu also stopped in her tracks and looked ahead. The scene in front of her made her eyes widen in shock. This was a huge cave. From the marks on the surrounding stone walls, it seemed to have been dug out not long ago. The previous cave was a little small, so I expanded it a little. Lin Qifei said calmly and pointed to the ground in front of them. At least it's barely enough. Mu Hongyu held her breath. There was nothing else on the ground. It was a huge and complicated xian formation. No, to be precise, it was a teleportation formation. This teleportation formation has not been used, so I can't be sure if it can send you out of the Divine Ruins world. Lin Qifei frowned. He had been secretly preparing for this for a long time. But even though he was extremely talented, it was still difficult for him to create such a teleportation formation alone. He did not expect the accident to come so quickly. It's fine. I have the faint essence body. Even if something happens to this teleportation array, I can just escape. Mu Hongyu waved her hand, but there was no trace of worry on her face. Ever since she had undergone that inhuman training in the Red Moon Desert, her ability to resist attacks had greatly improved. For ordinary cultivators, if something were to happen to the teleportation array midway, they would have a slim chance of surviving. However, she did not have such concerns. As she spoke, she took a step forward and stood on top of the teleportation array. Lin Qifei stared at her. "Be careful." With that, he activated the teleportation array. With a flash of light, Mu Hongyu's figure disappeared from the spot. Days passed. The elders outside the Myriad Wine Mountain were rotated as usual. However, Shengguan Jing, Elder Meng, and Elder Bo Yen were there every day. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. The blood-colored frost on the Thousand Wine Mountain had almost completely melted, leaving only the last patch near the spring. Unfortunately, until now, the spring was still very calm. There were no waves at all. The worry in everyone's hearts grew day by day. Under the clear and cold spring water, two figures were tightly huddled together. The black and gold fire burned quietly around Chu Liuyue's body, and the frost on her body had almost completely melted. However, her eyes were tightly shut. She did not open them at all. On Rongxiu's body, cuts and wounds had already appeared, and he was covered in blood. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1540. Wounds kept appearing on his body, but these wounds healed at an alarming rate. It was as if he had fallen into a strange cycle. However, this process was obviously a long torture for Rongxiu. He looked at the person in his arms. Although she had not fully woken up, there were no wounds on her body, and the cold air was slowly withdrawing from her body. He heaved a sigh of relief in his heart as he held her slender waist and pulled her tightly into his embrace. After such a long time, her body gradually regained some warmth. Rongxiu activated the force in his body and held her hand tightly, expelling the remaining cold air. It was silent all around, as if all sounds from the outside world had been cut off. Looking up, there were dark ripples on the water. Looking down, it was a pile of shattered rocks. In the middle, there were countless flowing silver lights. That was the power of the Sky Shuttle Array. Perhaps it was because of this power, although there were several cracks on the rocks at the bottom, they had temporarily stopped spreading. Moreover, most of the frost around them had dissipated. Only a thin layer of frost remained stubbornly on the rocks. Halfway up the mountain, Luo Yanming and Luo Yanlin sat facing each other. There was a chessboard between the two of them. Luo Yanming's brows were tightly knitted, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He had been staring at the chessboard for a full 15 minutes, but he had yet to place a piece. Being too cautious is being indecisive, Luo Yanlin said leisurely. Luo Yanming was even more nervous. He fiddled with the piece in his hand for a while, and finally placed it down hesitantly. Luo Yanlin placed a piece almost immediately after that. Clack. You lost. Luo Yanming's aura suddenly weakened, and he looked ashamed. Fourth brother, I'm too useless. He knew that his fourth brother was deliberately letting him win. Unfortunately, he was not talented enough, and could not be compared to his fourth brother. You've been steady and hardworking since you were young. Just this alone has made you better than many people. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to get into Lingxiao College. Luo Yanlin laughed, and his attitude towards him was very amiable. He raised his chin. Go back and study this game on your own. Yes. Luo Yanming replied respectfully. However, there was still a hint of loneliness in her eyes. What happened? Luo Yanlin noticed that something was wrong with his mood, so he asked a few more questions. Luo Yanming was silent for a long time before she looked up and asked, Fourth brother, I know that with my talent, no matter how hard I work, I won't be able to surpass you in this lifetime. There are even many people in the academy who are more talented than me. Do you think there's any meaning to me living like this day after day. To Luo Yanming's surprise, her fourth brother wasn't as angry as she had expected. Instead, he smiled. Is this what you've been thinking about all this time? Luo Yanming nodded uneasily. In fact, this emotion had troubled him for a very long time. It had been a few months since he entered Lingxiao College. At first, he was full of confidence, but gradually, he realized that he was not that outstanding. Although he had a calm temperament, he was used to keeping things in his heart, which was why he couldn't get over it. Actually, this is very normal. Almost all the top geniuses in the Divine Ruins have gathered here. However, there can only be one number one, and there has to be a winner. Your talent is definitely among the top. As long as you persevere in your cultivation, there will be a day when you stand out. Luo Yanming hesitated for a moment. It wasn't that he didn't understand these principles, but it required a lot of mental strength to digest them. Luo Yanlin raised an eyebrow. Actually, I think that your luck is pretty good. The most talented person in your batch should be Lin Qifei, right? Luo Yanming nodded. If I were to fight against him, my chances of winning are about 30%. At this point, his expression was a little gloomy. He had thought that the two of them would be able to fight to a draw, but later he realized that Lin Qifei was far more talented than him. If Lin Qifei had the same background as him, he would have already. 30% is high enough. Luo Yanlin suddenly laughed. He stood up, walked over, and patted his shoulder. When I first came to the academy, my opponents were Sheng Wanyu and Rong Xiu, those two freaks. You should be glad that Sheng Wanyu hid her identity and only followed Elder Wanjing to cultivate as a celestial physician. Otherwise. Luo Yanming asked curiously, fourth brother, you've known her for a long time. Fourth brother, you knew her before. How talented is she as a mystic cultivator? Sheng Wanyu was extremely talented in both celestial physician and martial artist. They knew this very well. The only thing she hadn't shown in front of everyone was that she was a Xian master. Luo Yanlin's expression was rather complicated. There was even a hint of bitterness in it. Finally, he took a deep breath and asked, I only have one thing to tell you. I only want to tell you one thing. Do you know why there is no gate in Fangzhou City? That's because she damaged it 3 times in a month. She also left a mark beside the gate, which damaged the barrier. The elders had no choice but to build a new barrier. The elders were so angry that they decided to tear down the gate in a fit of pique. Also, do you really think that Rong Xiu was the one who taught her how to break the barrier? Luo Yanming was dumbfounded. Kid, there are many geniuses in this world. Instead of doubting yourself, why don't you focus on improving your strength? Luo Yanming pondered for a long time before nodding heavily. Then, she subconsciously looked in the direction of Thousand Wine Mountain. Then. Fourth brother, since the two of them are so powerful, this time, Luo Yanlin narrowed his eyes. Rong Xiu never does anything that he isn't confident of. As for Sheng Wanyu, she has already died once, so she cherishes her life even more. He didn't think that the two of them were going to die. Luo Yanming pondered for a moment and still felt uneasy. But tomorrow is the deadline. The Sky Shuttle Array will completely destroy Thousand Wine Mountain. If they still don't come out. Luo Yanlin suddenly turned his gaze. During this period, Lin Qifei and Mu Hongyu haven't come out. Huh? Oh, right. Luo Yanming followed his gaze. Ever since she saw Lin Qifei and Mu Hongyu enter the cave together, she hadn't heard any news about the two of them. During this period of time, the academy had been in a lot of trouble. Everyone was on tenterhooks, so naturally, not many people paid attention to this matter. Luo Yanlin thought for a while before he finally said, It's late. It's late, you should go back first. Boom! Before he could finish his sentence, a loud sound came from the direction of Thousand Wine Mountain. The two of them were shocked and immediately looked in that direction. It was already evening. The sun was setting in the west, and its warm orange light shone on the clouds, illuminating half of the sky. As for the Thousand Wine Mountain, it suddenly collapsed from the middle of the mountain. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1541. The Thousand Wine Mountain had already been sliced apart by the Sky Shuttle Array layer by layer, and it was in imminent danger. At this moment, the Sky Shuttle Array suddenly exerted force, and the stacked half of the mountain instantly lost its balance and started to collapse. Rumble. Countless rocks rolled down, making a huge sound. Even the surrounding ground started to shake. What's going on? Isn't the Sky Shuttle Array supposed to end tomorrow? Luo Yanming was shocked. Why did it start early? Luo Yanlin frowned and stared at the Thousand Wine Mountain. To be precise, he was looking at the countless floating silver lines, the huge Sky Shuttle Array. Something's not right. He suddenly realized something, and his pupils constricted. Someone activated the Sky Shuttle Array. This huge commotion caused the originally quiet Lingxiao College to instantly boil. Originally, the Thousand Wine Mountain had been quiet for nearly a month, and everyone had gradually put this matter aside. However, this sudden scene immediately awakened everyone's previous memories. Many students rushed out and looked at the Thousand Wine Mountain nervously. What's wrong with the Thousand Wine Mountain? Why is there such a huge commotion? It seems like the Sky Shuttle Array has started. But isn't tomorrow the last day? Hiss, this situation is really strange. The elders had been carefully watching over it for a month, afraid that something would happen. There's no reason for this to suddenly happen. Even if they didn't know how strong the Sky Shuttle Array was, they didn't know what was hidden under the Thousand Wine Mountain. But anyone with a little common sense knew that this kind of top-grade Xian formation was exquisitely designed. Once there was a mistake, it was very likely that it would cause unpredictable consequences. And now, the Sky Shuttle Array, under the watch of the elders, still had a problem. Countless people trembled as they looked at the scene of crumbling rocks flying everywhere. This aura looked like it was going to destroy the world. What's going on? Everything happened so quickly that even Elder Bo Yen and the others, who had been watching over at the side, were all stunned. Who activated the Sky Shuttle Array? Elder Hua Feng, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion, asked anxiously. Everyone's expression was very ugly. No one. Elder Bo Yen said with difficulty. During this period of time, all of them had been very careful and didn't dare to make the slightest mistake. Just a moment ago, they were still in their respective positions. Who would have thought that this would happen all of a sudden? The Sky Shuttle Array suddenly spun faster. Besides, who here can activate the Sky Shuttle Array on their own? The other elders who had arrived one after another fell silent when they heard this. That's right. When the Sky Shuttle Array was activated, it was only because all of them worked together that they were able to succeed. During this period of time, the Sky Shuttle Array had been operating normally without any problems. For a Xian formation of this level, if it wasn't disturbed by external forces, it definitely wouldn't be like this. If it's not us, then, could it be inside? Elder Hua Feng muttered. Suddenly, his expression changed. What? Elder Bo Yen did not understand. Inside? Inside what? Was it the mountain of 10,000 wines or the mouth of the spring? Suddenly, his expression turned stern. Impossible. The Sky Shuttle Array had clearly suppressed it. Tomorrow would be the last day. The frost on Thousand Wine Mountain had completely melted. Even the ice that had formed above the spring had disappeared. Looking from above, it was a sea of rippling light, no different from before. In their opinion, that strange cold air had already been destroyed by the sky shuttle array. They only needed to wait until tomorrow to completely destroy Thousand Wine Mountain. Then, everything would be over. Why did something happen at this time? But after saying this, Elder Bo Yen felt an inexplicable sense of uneasiness in his heart. Look! There seems to be something wrong with the sky shuttle array. An elder exclaimed in shock. Elder Bo Yen and the others' hearts skipped a beat as they instinctively looked over. They saw that the countless crisscrossing silver lines on Thousand Wine Mountain were quietly floating up. They were retreating from the center of the spring. It was as if an invisible hand was slowly pushing away the power of the sky shuttle array bit by bit. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded and couldn't regain their senses for a long time. Every line on the sky shuttle array has its own trajectory. Now, it's being forcefully changed by external forces. Sheng Wanjing sucked in a cold breath. Who exactly is it that has such great power? No one knew. They didn't even know how all of this had happened. By the time they realized that something was wrong, it was already an irreversible situation. Everyone, get into position immediately. Restore the sky shuttle array to its original state. Elder Bo Yan's figure moved as he shouted loudly. But his face was still very pale. Because he knew too well that even if everyone worked together now, it would still be too late. Activating the sky shuttle array was already very difficult for them. Not to mention the current situation. But he had to react. There were still so many people in the academy. All the elders returned to their positions and surrounded the myriad wine mountain once again. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from Thousand Wine Mountain. No, it should be said that it came from under the spring. Thump. 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 It sounded like someone was hitting something hard. Again and again. It was as if something was going to rush out in the next moment. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1542. The 10,000 Wine Mountain was still collapsing. Only the spring in the middle seemed to be surrounded by an invisible barrier, so it was safe and sound. Only the knocking sounds that kept coming were strange and mysterious, causing one's heart to turn cold. This sky shuttle formation is starting to lose control. I'm afraid. Elder Hua Feng's face was pale. He was a Xian master, so he naturally knew how dangerous the current situation was. If it was the other formations in the academy, they might have a chance of winning if they attacked with all their strength. But this sky shuttle formation was completely different. Elder Bo Yen frowned. Suddenly, a white light flashed through his mind. Heaven Scroll. He quickly turned to look at Elder Hua Feng. The sky shuttle formation was left behind by the first dean. Perhaps the Heaven Scroll has a way to break it. Almost instantly, Elder Hua Feng understood Elder Bo Yan's meaning. You mean, the Xian formation diagram left behind by that person back then? His eyes lit up at first, but then that light quickly disappeared. But, there are at least 100 Xian formation diagrams in the Heaven Scroll, and all of them are extremely complicated. How can we completely comprehend them in such a short time and then use them to solve our current predicament? This was simply a fool's dream. For many years, the things left behind by the first dean had been carefully stored by the academy and would not be easily taken out for others to see. On one hand, those things were indeed treasures. On the other hand, there were not many people who could comprehend them. To put it bluntly, even a great Xian King teacher like Elder Hua Feng had to make contributions to the academy before he had the right to take a look. And he might not be able to completely comprehend even a single scroll in a year. Not to mention the others. Elder Bo Yan's expression instantly dimmed. It was indeed too late to think about this now. But could it be that they could only watch on helplessly as everything happened? Rumble. As they spoke, the 10,000 wine mountain was still collapsing. Those lines on the sky shuttle formation were stirred by an invisible force and had already started to become chaotic. Flowing light flew everywhere, and energy exploded. The towering and steep mountain peak split into pieces. The incomparably hard rocks turned into dust. Dust flew everywhere, and it was a boundless expanse. The night grew darker and darker, like a giant beast about to devour everything. Red Moon Desert. A blood-red full moon hung high in the night sky. The moonlight shone down, covering the boundless desert with a faint layer of crimson. It was eerily cold. In the depths of the desert, there was a lake that rippled with blue waves, quiet and tranquil. When the blood moon rose into the sky, a faint crimson color was reflected on the surface of the lake. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the middle of the lake. The crack grew bigger and bigger, gradually opening up a path. A tiny figure slowly walked out from it. She was dressed in brocade, with snow-white skin and purple eyes. His thick and long eyelashes cast a faint shadow on his eyelids, which seemed to add a bit of coldness to his entire person. The night wind blew, stirring up ripples and curling up his short purple hair. It was Dugumabao. He stood still on the lake and looked up at the sky. A dark look flashed across his eyes. For many years, it was only on the night of the blood moon that they were able to temporarily escape from the cage and obtain a moment of freedom. However, they had been living like this for too long, and they had long grown tired of it. Now that he had risked his life to refine his divine body, he had a few days of leisure. However, after leaving this desert, he still could not use his divine power at will. Otherwise, it would be a great danger. It's been so long, and they haven't come yet. They probably haven't noticed. A translucent figure flew out from under the lake. It was Diwu Zhangzi. Dugumabao retracted his gaze and shook his head. Not necessarily. After all, he had attacked in the Divine Ruins world. Although he had used many methods to cover it up, but those people were not to be trifled with. They were not moving now, perhaps they were just secretly observing. Or perhaps they had other considerations. Diwu Zhangzi frowned. During this period, you even forced your divine body into a deep sleep in order to hide your aura. No matter how capable they are, they won't be able to find any evidence. Without evidence, they could not do anything. Although they were trapped in this cage back then, it was not as if they had no way out. At the very least, if those people casually barged into the Red Moon Desert, they could have killed them unconditionally. Fortunately, Lan Shao left such a trick up his sleeve during the negotiation back then. Otherwise, we would have been passive everywhere. Diwu Zhangzi sighed. Dugumabao nodded and turned around. How's his recovery now? Previously, after he did his best to help Lan Shao, he fell into a deep sleep and had just woken up today. Diwu Zhangzi laughed. Don't worry, with such a rotten face, he won't be willing to die just like that. He has almost recovered in the past 2 days. Calculating the time, he should be waking up soon. Whose face are you calling rotten? An ethereal and lazy voice sounded. The two turned around and saw Lan Shao walking out from under the lake. His phantom seemed to have solidified a lot, and his aura had almost returned to its previous level. As for that face, as expected, it was a new face. Handsome and heroic, suave and elegant. He looked at Dugumabao with a smile and teased. You usually ignore me, but at the critical moment, you still care about me. The corner of Diwu Zhangzi's mouth twitched. He had just come back to life, but he was looking for death again. Indeed, it was easy to change mountains and rivers, but difficult to change one's nature. Dugumabao looked at him expressionlessly and reminded him coldly. Your face now belongs to your 12th junior brother. Lan Zhao's expression changed. He hurriedly looked down and then let out a scream. A handsome face was reflected on the surface of the water. No wonder he felt a little familiar just now. It was that bastard's. Why didn't you say so earlier? Before he finished speaking, Lan Zhao's figure had already disappeared under the lake again. Even after he left, he didn't forget to curse bitterly. It's been 10,000 years, and you still remember it so clearly. You pervert. Dugu Mabao looked indifferent. You're too forgetful. Lan Zhao didn't reply. He was probably busy tearing that face apart. Diwu Zhangzi gave him a thumbs up. You're still the best. Dugu Mabao's eyebrows moved slightly. How long have I slept? It was probably time to return to the academy. Diwu Zhangzi thought for a moment and said, actually, it's not that long. Probably, Russell. Before he finished speaking, a sound suddenly came from afar. The two of them immediately became alert. Dugu Mabao's expression turned cold, and he was about to attack. Diwu Zhangzi looked from afar and hurriedly said, wait. It's little Hongyu. Dugu Mabao's frown deepened. He had just sent Mu Hongyu to Lingxiao College not long ago. Why was she back now? Suddenly, his expression changed. Something happened. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1543. The air vibrated. Mu Hongyu took a step forward and landed heavily on the ground. Ouch, she rubbed her head. It hurts. Lin Qifei didn't lie to her. This teleportation array wasn't reliable at all. She only managed to survive with her void energy physique. If it were anyone else, they would have been killed countless times. Little Hongyu. A familiar voice sounded. Mu Hongyu looked up in surprise. Senior Diwu. She looked at the old man who suddenly appeared in front of her in shock, and her almond-shaped eyes were wide open. Although she had cultivated with Diwu Zhangzi in the Red Moon Desert for a long time, she had never seen his true appearance. But why did he look like a soul? Diwu Zhangzi's heart sank as he looked at Mu Hongyu, who was covered in injuries and in a sorry state. Little Hongyu, why did you suddenly come back? And your injuries? Upon hearing that, Mu Hongyu couldn't be bothered to be surprised. She hurriedly got up and said, Senior Diwu, something happened to Lu Yu. Quickly go and take a look. What happened to her? It wasn't Diwu Zhangzi who asked. Mu Hongyu was stunned. Then, she saw Dugu Mabao beside her. Although he looked like a child who was only a few years old and looked very cute, Mu Hongyu, who had seen his true strength, wouldn't really treat him as a child. She even felt relieved to see him now. She took a deep breath and hurriedly explained, I don't know what's wrong with the Academy's Wine Mountain. Lu Yu directly barged in. And Rong Xiao. In order to save Huiyue, he had also gone in. But before the two of them came out, the Academy activated the Sky Shuttle Array to suppress the Wine Mountain. Diwu Zhangzi was shocked and immediately looked at Dugu Mabao. That thing is coming out, and the Sky Shuttle Array is activated. You didn't know. Dugu Mabao's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. During this period of time, he had been busy saving Lan Zhao and forced his divine body to go into hibernation. Naturally, he didn't know. Diwu Zhangzi also immediately thought of this point, and his expression became somewhat vexed. How long has the Sky Shuttle Array been open? Dugu Mabao asked in a deep voice. Mu Hongyu was stunned. I don't know. I used Lin Qifei's teleportation array to sneak out. There were a few troubles along the way, so I don't know how much time has passed. She looked very guilty. Dugu Mabao closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened his eyes. His clear and bright eyes were now dark and cold. The next moment, he raised his wrist slightly, and a piece of purple scale armor suddenly flew out. Whang! An enormous transmission array suddenly appeared before their eyes. Although she had seen it before, Mu Hongyu was still shocked by this scene. He could casually construct a teleportation array to enter and exit the Divine Ruins world. Just how strong was he? Dugu Mabao lifted his leg and walked into the teleportation array. Mu Hongyu hurriedly followed. Diwu Zhangzi frowned. His lips moved, but he still chose to speak. Debao, when we go back this time, you must not use your divine power again. Last time, he was lucky enough to avoid it. But if he were to do it again, and it was in Lingxiao College, then, on the teleportation array, a bright light suddenly appeared. That bright light shone on his face, but it was as if a layer of frost had fallen. He didn't speak. The light flashed, and the two figures instantly disappeared. In the desert, only Diwu Zhangzi was left. He looked at the place where the two had left. After a long time, he finally let out a long sigh. It was useless to persuade him. How could he sit by and do nothing when was in trouble? Last time, for her, he forcefully reconstructed his divine body. Even if he could only appear in front of others with the appearance of a child, he wouldn't hesitate. Not to mention other things. Lingxiao College. Dusk fell, but more than half of the college was already illuminated by the light of the Sky Shuttle Array. As time passed, the power of the Sky Shuttle Array became more chaotic. Flowing light flew everywhere, and it was extremely dangerous. The entire Thousand Wine Mountain had almost collapsed. Only the spring in the middle remained unmoved. At this moment, almost all the elders of the academy had gathered here. They all understood that this time, the college was in great danger. If something really happened to the college today, then the culprit is Sheng Wanyu. Yi Wenzhua, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion, was shocked for a long time after seeing the scene in front of him. This was the first thing he said. Some people looked over. Elder Bo Yen suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a low voice, "Deputy Dean, now isn't the time to talk about this." Yi Wenzhua sneered. Am I wrong? If not for her, the Thousand Wine Mountain wouldn't be like this in order to let her contracted beast break through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. The hidden danger in the Thousand Wine Mountain has been buried for tens of thousands of years. She couldn't be blamed for everything that had happened today. Moreover, she had already rushed down the moment the incident happened, and Rong Xiao was behind her. Elder Bo Yan's anger was also surging. He was already very worried about the current situation, and Yi Wenzhua was still mocking and ridiculing him. This was too much. Yi Wenzhua retorted, so what? Could it be that the lives of the two of them could be compared to the lives of Ling Xiao Academy? In my opinion, the dean was too good to her and spoiled her. Elder Bo Yen was furious. Suddenly, a deep and mellow voice came from afar. She's my disciple. What's wrong with me being good to her and spoiling her? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1544. This voice seemed to come from a very far place, but when it landed in everyone's ears, it was as clear as if it was right in front of them. Everyone was shocked and turned their heads to look. Under the black night sky, a figure was striding toward them. Elder Bo Yen and the others were pleasantly surprised. Dean! Yi Wenzhua's expression changed. Why did he come back at this time? When the numerous students in the academy heard this voice, they all raised their heads in curiosity and looked over. Most of them had only heard of this dean in rumors, but had never seen him with their own eyes. In the Divine Ruins world, who didn't know that Lingxiao College's dean, Nan Su Huai, was a top expert in the world? Celestial physician, martial artist, and mystic master, and all of them had reached an extremely high level. Many people who entered Lingshao College wanted to be his disciple. However, he had high standards and had only accepted one disciple over the years. He doted on this disciple to the extreme, to the point that it made one's hair stand on end. However, this master and disciple were both geniuses among geniuses, experts among experts. It made people envious and jealous, but they didn't know who to target. Countless people wanted to be Nan Suhuai's disciple, but at the same time, countless people wanted to be Chu Liuyue's master. Therefore, at this moment, most people were filled with curiosity and admiration as they looked at the person in the sky. It was an old man wearing a white robe with a green jade token at his waist. Other than that, he didn't have any other accessories on his body. He had white hair and a ruddy complexion, looking hale and hearty. The night wind blew, and his wide sleeves fluttered in the wind. At a glance, he looked like an immortal. In the blink of an eye, he had already flown from the horizon to the front of everyone. Many people were dumbfounded by this scene. This legendary dean was indeed worthy of his reputation. "Dean! You're finally back." Elder Bo Yen immediately stepped forward. Elder Hua Feng and the others followed closely behind with excited expressions on their faces. They couldn't be blamed for being so, because they really didn't expect the dean to rush back at this time. In the past few years, the dean had been away and there had been no news. They announced to the outside world that the dean had gone out to travel, but only they knew that this was not the case. If not for the fact that Elder Bo Yen had a way to confirm that the dean was still safe and sound, they would have misunderstood that something had happened to the dean. During this period of time, the academy had been in constant trouble. Now, even the Sky Shuttle Array had a problem. At this moment, they were naturally filled with joy and excitement to see the dean return. Nan Suhuai patted Elder Bo Yen's shoulder. "Bo Yen, it's been hard on you." Elder Bo Yen felt sour in his heart, but he immediately suppressed it and shook his head. "You handed the academy over to me, so this is what I should do." It was just that. Bo Yan's incompetence had resulted in the current situation. Nan Suhuai smiled. "You that has stirred up trouble again, how can you be blamed for it? Don't worry, when she comes out, I'll definitely punish her." Elder Hua Feng and the others' eyes lit up when they heard this. "Dean, can you save the two of them?" Given the current situation, they didn't dare to have any hope. But since the dean said so, it proved that, Ewanswell gritted his teeth. "Junior brother, the Sky Shuttle Array has begun to collapse, how are you going to deal with it?" Nan Suhuai glanced at him and smiled. "You don't have to worry about it." With that, he turned his gaze and looked at the Thousand Wine Mountain. Rong Xiu also went in. Elder Bo Yen and the others nodded in unison. Nan Suhuai sighed. "His Highness is really magnanimous." Digression, his hands were already frozen and red and swollen. 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1545. If he couldn't make it back in time, then, all mystic cultivators stay here. Everyone else, step back for now. Nan Suhuai ordered. No one objected and did as he said. Perhaps it was because their backbone had returned, but everyone's mood had calmed down a lot. Seeing the elders taking their positions according to Nan Suhuai's order, Ewanswell felt aggrieved. He knew that these people trusted Nan Suhuai wholeheartedly and revered him. It was because of him that many people chose to stay in the Spirit Firmament Academy. Nan Suhuai had been absent for the past few years, but the college had been stable. However, these people had a very different attitude toward him, the vice president. Ewanswell knew that although everyone called him vice president, on the surface, there weren't many who really took him seriously. This was one of the reasons why Ewanswell felt so resentful. He was Nan Suhuai's senior martial brother. In terms of status and strength, he had the upper hand. But in the end, all the benefits and reputation were given to Nan Suwai alone. Everyone knew that the president of Lingxiao College, Nan Suwai, was extremely talented and powerful. But how many people still remembered him? Yi Wenzhua took a deep breath and turned to look at Thousand Wine Mountain. It was meaningless to talk about this now. He just wanted to see how Nan Suwai and the others were going to survive this disaster. The sky shuttle formation had collapsed. It wasn't that easy to repair it. Swoosh! After the mystic cultivators and elders took their positions around Thousand Wine Mountain, Nan Suwai rushed to the center. His movement technique was graceful, and his movements were light. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the sky. And his feet were facing the mouth of the spring at the top of Thousand Wine Mountain. Nan Suwai looked down. At this moment, the power of the sky shuttle formation had gradually retreated from the mouth of the spring. The surroundings were bright and resplendent, but only the center was dark and gloomy. The night was dark, and there were no stars or moon. From here, one could only see the rippling light above the mouth of the spring, which was dark and mysterious. The auras of the two people seemed to have been completely isolated and couldn't be detected. Nan Suwai's expression turned solemn as he raised his hands. It was a pair of extremely white and smooth hands that emitted a faint glow. It was as if they were meticulously carved from the finest translucent white jade. He slightly staggered his feet and moved his palms. As his fingers moved, countless streams of light rapidly gathered in front of him. Very quickly, it formed the outline of a Xian formation. As time passed, more and more streams of light converged from all directions, constantly filling up the Xian formation, causing it to become even more complex and perfect. Nan Suwai's expression was indifferent. It was as if he had casually plucked some of the power of heaven and earth, and easily transformed it into his own power, and condensed it into a profound formation. Great Grand Master. When the surrounding elders saw this scene, they were all shocked. To be able to perfectly fuse with the heaven and earth origin power, and even mobilize and condense it into a complicated profound formation, this was indeed something that only a great grandmaster could do. Could it be that the dean has been busy making breakthroughs in the past few years? Elder Bo Yen could not help but mutter softly, his eyes still filled with amazement. Above the Mystic King Division was the Great Mystic King Division. Above that was the Great Grandmaster. On the surface, there was only a gap between a Great Xian King Master and a Great Grandmaster. However, in reality, it was extremely difficult to cross this natural chasm. Lingxiao College had not had a Great Grandmaster breakthrough for 100 years. Even someone as talented as Nan Suwai had stayed in the Great Xian King Master realm for a very long time. This is great. Elder Ouyang and the rest at the side were overjoyed. Now that the dean has become a Great Grandmaster, he should be more confident in dealing with this sky shuttle formation. Hearing this, everyone nodded one after another, their minds also calmed down a lot. Yi Wenzhua had one hand behind his back as he stared at Nan Suwai, who was in midair. His fists were clenched tightly, and his veins were popping out. Nan Suwai actually defeated him again. During this period of time, he faintly felt that he was about to break through to the Great Grandmaster realm, but after waiting for a long time and trying many methods, he was still a little short in the end. Originally, he did not particularly care because he firmly believed that he would break through sooner or later. But now, seeing that Nan Suwai had snatched it from him, his heart was instantly filled with unwillingness. But this kind of thing could not be rushed in a short period of time. He could only endure for the time being. Now, it was up to Nan Suwai and the rest to see if they had the ability to protect Lingxiao College. If they could not, Nan Suwai would become a sinner for all eternity. At that time, it would not be too late for him to make a move. In less than half an incense's time, a huge Xian formation appeared in front of Nan Suwai. Nan Su Huai's expression was solemn as he pushed his hands forward. Raging waves formation. That huge Xian formation began to descend slowly towards Thousand Wine Mountain. Vaguely, there seemed to be the sound of surging tides. The distance between the two Xian formations was constantly shrinking. The forces of both sides began to collide and entangle with each other. Light splashed in all directions. Even the surrounding space was shattered by this violent force, collapsing inch by inch. Everyone, listen to my command. Condense. Nan Su Huai suddenly shouted loudly. Everyone was already prepared. At this time, when they heard the command, they all attacked without holding back. The raging waves formation suddenly shone brightly. From afar, the two Xian formations looked like two huge gears that overlapped with each other. The sky shuttle formation was spurred by that strange force and spun faster. The appearance of the stab death and raging waves formation was to slow it down again. Although the raging waves formation's level was not as high as the sky shuttle formation, after gathering the strength of all the elders, it could barely contend with it. Gradually, the speed of the sky shuttle formation's rotation slowed down. Even those silver lines that had deviated from their original trajectory were affected by this force and began to return to their original positions. Everything seemed to be in order. Seeing this, all the elders heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still did not dare to let down their guard. For the past 20 days, there were no problems. However, on the last day, there was an accident. Moreover, it happened under their strict surveillance. The force that was suppressed under the spring was obviously far beyond their imagination. Therefore, until the last moment, their hearts would not be at ease no matter what. Everyone's strength was being consumed crazily. Among them, a few of the elders' faces had begun to turn pale. At this time, they were all relying on their willpower to support themselves. However, seeing the situation of Thousand Wine Mountain turning for the better, the pressure in their hearts lessened. Listen. That knocking sound seems to have disappeared. Amidst the silence, someone suddenly shouted. Everyone came back to their senses and instinctively leaned their ears to listen. As expected, the thumping sound had already disappeared. Now is the time. Nan Su Huai made up his mind and looked at the spring of Thousand Wine Mountain. Suddenly, he crushed the green jade token on his waist. Bang! In the next moment, a figure suddenly rushed out from the spring. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1546. It was Rongxiu. Under the night sky, the wind whistled and the dark clouds were thick. His snow-white robes had already been torn in several places and were stained with blood. However, the shocking aura that surged around his body caused people to tremble with fear. When he flew into the air, everyone saw that he was actually holding a woman in his arms. Who else could it be other than Sheng Wanyu, who flew away earlier? However, she was leaning against Rongxiu's arms. Her face was slightly tilted and no one could see her face. Looking from afar, one could only see her long black hair hanging down her shoulders. It's Rongxiu and you, Elder Bo Yen and the rest were delighted. Although the two of them were injured, they didn't seem to be in fatal danger. He really didn't know how they had managed to survive in the Sky Shuttle array for nearly a month. These thoughts flashed through their minds and didn't stay for long. Anyway, as long as they were alive, nothing else mattered. Shengguan Jing had been worried for an entire month. When he saw the two of them, although the stone in his heart couldn't be said to be completely lifted, it was still much more relaxed than before. Luckily. He didn't dare to think that if something happened to you, Shengguan Jing tried his best to suppress his urge to go forward and waited patiently. Next, as long as everything went smoothly, the two of them would be able to return safely. Rongxiu hugged Chu Lue tightly in his arms. At this moment, under their feet was the sky shuttle formation that hadn't been fully repaired. Above their heads was the shocking waves formation that had just descended. The two Xian formations overlapped and fought against each other. The distance in the middle was still shrinking. They had to leave this extremely dangerous place as soon as possible. Looking at the two of them, Nan Suhui frowned. It could be seen that the two of them had suffered quite a bit in the spring during this period of time. Fortunately, they had already come out. As long as they could break free from the restraint of the two Xian formations, they would be able to escape safely. A silver line suddenly drifted over. It was wrapped in a faint cold air that was bone-chilling. It was faintly suffused with a faint trace of blood. Rong Xiu's eyes turned sharp. Boom! He raised his wrist, and a golden flame suddenly burned. Sizzle! An ear-piercing burning sound could be heard. The thing quickly dissipated in front of Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu moved his feet and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a strange sound came from the sky shuttle formation beneath his feet. Crack! Rong Xiu subconsciously looked down, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. The sky shuttle array suddenly stopped operating. Between heaven and earth, there was a sudden silence. Everyone sensed that something was wrong and felt a chill in their hearts. Even Nan Suhuai's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, he almost didn't even think about it as he shouted sternly. Quick! Rong Xiu's toes moved, and he was about to forcefully tear open space. However, just as the space trembled and the spatial rift was about to appear, a loud bang suddenly resounded from the wine mountain below. Bang! A huge black palm suddenly rushed out from the mouth of the spring. That hand was very strange. It was abnormally big, but the joints were clearly defined. On the back of the hand, there were slightly bulging red blood vessels. There were also long fingernails on the fingertips. At first glance, it looked very similar to a real hand, and not an illusion. After the hand appeared, it directly grabbed the sky shuttle formation and pulled it hard. Boom! With a loud bang, the sky shuttle formation seemed to be stimulated by the power of this extremely strange hand. It started to rotate again at an astonishing speed. However, at this moment, the middle part of the formation had started to disintegrate, and the astonishing power contained in it was gradually rioting. In the next moment, the hand directly grabbed Rong Xiu and Nan Suhui. Rong Xiu quickly dodged with Nan Suhui in his arms. The hand grabbed empty air, but in the next moment, it directly grabbed at the raging waves formation above. The same scene played out again. In front of that hand, the Xian formation seemed to be made of paper and couldn't withstand a single blow. Everyone was stunned on the spot. Ever since the incident on the Wine Mountain, they had thought of countless possibilities. However, they didn't expect that it was only a hand that was suppressed below. However, what they didn't expect even more was that the power of this hand was actually so strong. Putting the raging waves formation aside, the sky shuttle formation was of a higher level. Even activating it required the cooperation of the Academy's elders. However, at this moment, in front of this hand, it was destroyed so easily. What is that? Elder Bo Yan was stunned on the spot. They were considered to have seen a lot of the world, but at this moment, they still couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. Shangguan Jing stared at that hand. He didn't know what was going on, or what kind of secrets and grudges were hidden under the Wine Mountain. However, he could see that this hand, clearly, it came from a certain cultivator's divine body. The unique aura of a divine body couldn't be wrong. However, this wasn't what shocked him the most. Because, under this hand, it didn't seem to be a complete divine body. In other words, what was suppressed under the Wine Mountain was only this hand. As if to verify his guess, the hand suddenly rushed out of the Thousand Wine Mountain. Although it was called the Wine Mountain, it was already in ruins at this moment. It was indeed only a hand that was connected to the forearm. It seemed to have been directly cut off from the elbow by someone. There were even faint traces of a sharp blade cutting through the wound. However, this arm, even the flesh, blood, and bones inside were all black. It is indeed a divine body. Shangguan Jing sucked in a breath of cold air. In this world, almost all cultivators could only have one divine body in their lifetime. A divine body could be separated from the physical body, but it couldn't exist alone. Back then, he had buried his divine body in the tomb. His physical body was destroyed, but his soul was still there. That was why he was able to wake up again after 1,000 years. However, he had never heard of a divine body that had such terrifying power after cutting off half an arm. After destroying the two Xian formations, that hand went straight for Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue again. That hand was very big, and it was enough to grab the two of them and crush them forcefully. The biting cold air kept getting closer. Rong Xiao turned around and saw that the hand was already in front of him. A blood-colored totem was faintly discernible in the palm. A vast pressure came rushing over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1547. Swoosh. A figure quickly appeared in front of Rong Xiao and Shangguan Xiao. It was Nan Su Huai. I'll deal with this. Rong Xiao, bring you back. Nan Su Huai shouted. When the two of them came out, he saw Yu lying in Rong Xiao's arms. She seemed to have fainted. He did not know how she was doing, so he did not dare to let the two of them take the risk. Rong Xiao did not hesitate. He immediately stepped back when he heard Nan Su Huai's order. A ray of blue light flashed by. A sharp longsword appeared in Nan Su Huai's hand. The longsword was translucent and blue in color. It was about 3 fingers wide, and there were some strange patterns engraved on it. When he swung it, the cold light shone. Nan Su Huai held the sword with both hands and stood in front of him. His aura surged. The next moment, the surrounding energy of heaven and earth seemed to be summoned by something and began to surge toward the sword in front of him. As the energy accumulated on the sword increased, the color on it became deeper and purer. At first glance, it looked like it was carved out of blue jade. Whoosh! The abundant energy of heaven and earth swirled around Nan Su Huai, forming a huge vortex. It was majestic. At this moment, the black palm was closing in on Nan Su Huai. Swoosh! Nan Su Huai raised the sword with both hands and slashed it down. A ray of blue sword light suddenly flew out. Swoosh! Along with this slight sound, the space in front of him was actually split open by a huge spatial crack. Countless black turbulence surged out. At the same time, Shangguan Jing and Elder Meng also moved. Shangguan Jing held a long saber and slashed horizontally. Elder Meng crossed his hands in front of him and threw out a ray of force. In an instant, it condensed into an extremely sharp triangular awl. The three of them each took one side and trapped the black palm in the middle. Between heaven and earth, energy raged. Several forces collided and fell into a chaotic battle. Rong Xiao quickly retreated with Chu Luiyue in his arms. At this moment, they were still under the control of the power of the black palm, so they were surrounded by turbulence. Several sharp auras scraped past their bodies like sharp blades. Chi! A slight air-piercing sound was heard. Rong Xiao's gaze turned sharp as he hugged the person in his arms even tighter and dodged. At the same time, a ball of golden flames suddenly exploded in front of the two of them, forming a wall of fire, blocking the frenzied energy outside of his body. A strand of Chu Luiyue's hair was silently cut off and slowly fell to the ground. Rong Xiao's eyes were suddenly filled with killing intent. A thick black color flashed past his eyes. Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly coughed. Rong Xiao immediately looked down and saw her pale face scrunched up. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and her thick and long eyelashes were trembling slightly. Rong Xiao shouted and tightened his grip on her waist. Chu Luiyue finally woke up slowly and opened her eyes. Seeing Rong Xiao, there was still a moment of confusion in her eyes, as if she had not understood what had happened. Rong Xiao, however, heaved a sigh of relief. He bent down and kissed her gently between her eyebrows. It was extremely restrained, but also extremely precious. He really did not want to see the same scene a second time. Now that he could see her wake up, it could not be better. Her cool and soft lips gently kissed between his eyebrows. Leaning on his firm, broad, and warm chest, she listened to his strong heartbeat, again and again. Chu Luiyue finally remembered the cause and effect of the incident. Rong Xiao. She murmured and subconsciously looked around. We are out. In truth, her consciousness had always been in a half-conscious state. She wanted to wake up, but she could not open her eyes. In her memory, she had been running in that boundless white space for a long time. Only when the golden fire had set the plains ablaze did she finally break free of that invisible shackle. It was currently night, and the sky was dark. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the moon and stars could not be seen. However, not far away, there was an intense battle that was currently in progress. When she saw that huge black palm, Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. Then, she suddenly understood. That was the thing suppressed under Myriad Wine Mountain. That aura was definitely not wrong. But, how could such a hand possess such terrifying strength? Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiyue saw that several forces in the surroundings were fiercely attacking that palm. A dark blue sword light had already rushed in front of the palm. Clang! A dull crashing sound rang out. That sword light slashed at that palm, but it was as if a sword had landed on incomparably hard iron. Nan Su Huai was shocked. In the next moment, he saw that blue sword light shatter with a bang. Countless streams of light splashed out. Nan Su Huai's chest shook, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Shengguan Jing and Elder Meng looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. The power of this hand seemed to be more terrifying than they had expected. Nan Su Huai had used all his strength in that attack. However, the sword of a venerable god expert was so weak in front of this hand. The hand continued to move forward. Nan Su Huai raised his sword, but the blade was caught by the black hand. The incomparably sharp blade did not leave a single mark on that hand. Nan Su Huai knew that this was not good, and immediately wanted to retreat. But it was too late. The black hand fiercely snapped. Crack! Nan Su Huai's sword was snapped in half just like that. At the same time, Nan Su Huai was also hit by a powerful force, and his body flew backward. Master! Chu Luiyue was shocked. Almost at the same time, Shengguan Jing and Elder Meng's forces were also easily shattered by that hand. Their attacks obviously could not stop it at all. What happened in mid-air shocked all the onlookers in the college. Not only the students, but even the experienced and knowledgeable elders were also shocked at this time. No wonder. No wonder Lingxiao College had been carefully guarding Mount Wanzhou for so many years, and dared not make any mistakes. It turned out that there was such a terrifying force hidden under the mountain. The hand turned and then clenched in the direction of Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue. From their point of view, they could see the blood-red totem in the center of that hand. Rong Xiao was alerted and retreated again. However, at this time, a powerful force suddenly came from that hand. In an instant, it was like a storm. A turbulent and terrifying aura swept over madly. The water droplets in Chu Liyue's body suddenly spun rapidly, and vaguely, they were about to be snatched away by that hand. Rong Xiao hugged her even tighter, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. However, at this time, he was only a great deity. How could he resist the power of that hand? Countless wounds quickly appeared all over his body. Dark red blood stains silently spread on his white brocade robe. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1548. Chu Liyue suddenly said, "Give me Scarlet Heaven's sword." Rong Xiao frowned and looked at the person in his arms. Of course, he knew what she wanted to do, but how could he agree in such a dangerous situation? Chu Liyue shook her head lightly. "It's looking for me." Moreover, she was the one who had caused this trouble. Naturally, she should be the one to solve it. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were unusually determined. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Rong Xiao's eyes seemed to be surging. It seemed like a long time, but it also seemed like it was just a moment. A faint but evil smile suddenly appeared on Rong Xiao's handsome and devilish face. His thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. It was magnificent and had an indescribable charm. Chu Liyue was in a daze for a moment. This man had always been cold and noble, but this smile was like an immortal and a demon, unpredictable. Swoosh! A cold light flashed past. He handed Scarlet Heaven's sword to Chu Liyue. "I'll wait for you to come back. If you don't, I'll go find you." His voice was cold and low. Chu Liyue took the sword. "Wait for me." Chu Liyue turned around. Between her eyebrows, it was boiling hot. She touched it subconsciously. It was smooth. That boiling hot feeling quickly disappeared. She frowned slightly, but did not think too much. Holding Scarlet Heaven's sword, she looked at the black palm in front of her. The water droplets in her dantian seemed to be forcefully taken away in the next moment. Chu Liyue gritted her teeth. She channeled the force in her body into Scarlet Heaven's sword. The next moment, she raised the sword with both hands and slashed down. Clang! That hand easily blocked the Scarlet Heaven's sword. Then, that hand went straight for Chu Liyue. Her figure was slender to begin with. At this moment, she seemed even smaller in front of that huge black palm. It was as if that hand could easily crush her body and shatter her bones. When Sheng Wanjing and the others saw this, they were almost scared out of their wits. The few of them wanted to step forward, but they were all blocked by the terrifying pressure. This black palm was truly too powerful, and it caused them to be unable to even take a step closer. Elder Bo Yan and the others were also pale. Even the three of them together couldn't do it, let alone others. Within the academy, on the various mountain peaks, the numerous students who were watching the situation all fell silent. The situation was pretty much set in stone. No matter how powerful Sheng Wanyu and Rong Xiao were, they were no match for the dean and the others. Which one of them didn't dote on Sheng Wanyu? As long as they still had a way out, they wouldn't just stand by and watch this happen. As for the ending, one could almost forget it at a glance. On top of a mountain, Luo Shishir was in a daze, her eyes red. Seeing her like this, Luo Yanlin's fingers twitched. He wanted to stop her from looking. But after hesitating for a long time, that hand finally landed on her head and gently patted her. Luo Shishir's tears fell from her eyes. The black palm grabbed at Chu Liyue. However, in the next moment, pure gold and transparent flames suddenly surged out of the sword. In the blink of an eye, it had already covered half of the sword. The flames burned brightly, producing an ear-piercing sizzling sound. A thick stench of black smoke spread out from that hand. Woo woo. In a daze, there seemed to be a mournful whimper coming from that hand. Chu Luiyue was standing right in front of that hand. When he looked up, he could see that there seemed to be countless skeletons floating in that hand. The gloomy and oppressive aura spread wildly in all directions. Chu Luiyue felt a chill run down his spine. Beside Thousand Wine Mountain, on a mountain peak some distance away. In a cave halfway up the mountain, light flickered. Lin Qifei stood beside the huge teleportation formation. His face was pale, and sweat kept dripping from his forehead. In order to support this teleportation formation, the force in his body was almost completely depleted. Because of the exhaustion, his body was already trembling. However, his eyes were still fixed on the teleportation formation. There were a few problems with this teleportation formation, and he had already tried his best to repair them. Now, the only thing he could do was to try his best to maintain it. He did not know how Mu Hongyu was doing, his vision turned black. At a certain moment, he finally could not hold on any longer. His legs gave way, and he fell to the ground. Bang! His body landed heavily on the ground with a dull thud. After resting for a moment, he gritted his teeth and stood up. However, this simple action was already extremely difficult for Lin Qifei. Looking at the teleportation formation that was on the verge of collapse, Lin Qifei's eyes flashed with determination. He took out a dagger and slashed his palm. Dark red blood instantly flowed out. He raised his hand and was about to imprint his blood on the Xian formation. With this, he might be able to buzz. The void shook. Above the teleportation formation, flowing lights suddenly flashed. Lin Qifei paused in his actions. In the next moment, he saw a figure walking out of it. It was Mu Hongyu. Lin Qifei was delighted at first, but when he saw Mu Hongyu covered in blood and in a sorry state, his heart was in his mouth again. Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu's ears were buzzing. She had yet to recover from the impact of the spatial turbulence. When she heard this voice, she instinctively looked up. Mu Hongyu, how are you? Lin Qifei walked forward, intending to help Mu Hongyu. However, after taking 2 steps, he staggered again. Upon seeing this, Mu Hongyu hurriedly rushed over to support him. I'm fine, just some flesh wounds. But you. As she spoke, she sized up Lin Qifei and could not help but frown. With Lin Qifei's current age, it was already very difficult for him to build a teleportation formation of this level. Not to mention that he had lasted for so long. Lin Qifei waved his hand. I'm fine. As he spoke, he took out a pill and swallowed it. Mu Hongyu knew that his situation must be very bad, but it was not good for her to ask. She glanced outside. By the way, how long have I been gone? Along the way, she was worried that she would not make it in time. Lin Qifei swallowed the blood between his lips and teeth. Tomorrow is the last day of the 1-month period, but just now, something happened at Thousand Wine Mountain. He had been staying here all this time and did not know what was going on outside. He could only guess from some of the chaotic movements that it should not be anything good. Mu Hongyu heard this and immediately became even more worried. Something happened again. Then, Lin Qifei looked at her. The person you mentioned. Is he here? Mu Hongyu hurriedly nodded. He's here. Originally, we were together, but not long after entering the Divine Ruins world, he asked me to come back alone. Calculating the time, he should be here by now, but I just don't know if he can solve the problem at Thousand Wine Mountain. In mid-air, Chu Liuyue's body flew forward uncontrollably. A terrifying pressure covered the sky and earth, almost crushing her tendons and bones inch by inch. The water droplets in her dantian were about to burst out of her body. Everyone's eyes were covered with a layer of despair. However, just as the black palm was about to clamp down on Chu Luiyue, a purple scale suddenly flew over from the horizon. It was floating and agile, but it also contained a shocking power. It arrived in the blink of an eye. Digression, I'm sorry, everyone. My heart was in a mess this morning. 6 p.m. I hope that everyone can cherish their own lives and that of their loved ones. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from Love. Chapter 1549. The purple scale armor was only the size of a palm. Under the dark night sky, it was inconspicuous. Especially when compared to the huge black palm, it was so small that it could be ignored. However, this small piece of scale flew in front of Chu Luiyue and harshly sliced through the black palm. Pest! With a sharp sound, more than half of the thumb on the black palm was sliced off. The suffocating eerie aura around Chu Luiyue was instantly cut off. Chu Luiyue relaxed and took a deep breath. Fresh air rushed into her lungs and she finally regained her senses. At that moment, she almost thought that she immediately looked in front of her. When she saw the purple scale armor floating in front of her, her eyes widened slightly. After a moment of daze, she suddenly recalled something. This is Debao. She subconsciously turned her head to look around. However, Debao was nowhere to be seen. However, this scale armor was indeed his. They had spent so much time together. She would never mistake it for someone else. The sudden turn of events stunned everyone present. They looked at the purple scale armor blankly and slowly. For a moment, they were unable to react. What is that? It looks similar to the scale armor of the Great Phoenix Dragon Clan. However, upon closer inspection, it's different, didn't you see it? The moment it appeared, a piece of flesh was sliced off from the black palm. You should know that the joint attack of the Dean and the rest could not hurt the palm at all. What is this thing? It's too powerful. Anyway, I think it's on Sheng Guanyu's side. Perhaps today's situation can be saved. Everyone discussed in low voices. Obviously, they were curious about this thing. When Nan Suwai saw the purple scale armor, he was shocked. A strange look flashed across his eyes. How did that person return? Like Chu Luiyue, he immediately looked around and looked into the distance, searching for something. However, the difference between him and Chu Luiyue was that his actions were very careful and small. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice that he was looking for someone. In addition, there was another person who revealed a look of shock after seeing the purple scale armor. Elder Bo Yen. His brows furrowed tightly, his expression uncertain. When he first saw that thing, he thought he was mistaken. He subconsciously looked at Nan Suwai. When he saw Nan Suwai's expression, he felt a heavy pressure on his heart. He was even more certain of his guess. For a moment, his heart was filled with complicated emotions. Suspicion, surprise, anticipation, fear. He could still clearly remember that on the title page of the Academy's register, there was a scale armor that glowed with a faint purple light. Only the successive headmasters had access to this register, and he was only keeping it temporarily because of the special circumstances of the past few years. From this, he was able to learn a thing or two. But he never thought that he would have the chance to see this scale with his own eyes in his lifetime. Doesn't that mean that person, Bo Yen? Bo Yen. What's wrong? Elder Hua Feng glanced at Elder Bo Yan's strange expression and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. He frowned suspiciously. Do you recognize that thing? Elder Bo Yan's heart skipped a beat, and he shook his head reflexively. No, I don't recognize it. I'm just thinking, where did that thing come from? It's actually so powerful. Elder Hua Feng didn't doubt him. Because at this moment, he was also thinking about the same thing. It's just a small-scale armor, but it has such power. It can be seen that its owner is not an ordinary person. Elder Hua Feng narrowed his eyes and stared at it for a while. Could it be that a powerful being has made a move? Elder Bo Yan's lips moved, but he didn't say anything. If it was really that person, it couldn't be described as a powerful being. But 10,000 years had passed, could it be that he was still alive? Moreover, if he really came back, why was there no sign of him? After the purple scale armor appeared, the black palm finally stopped moving for a moment. It seemed to be somewhat fearful. The two confronted each other. Chu Luiwa took out a scarlet pill and swallowed it. The pill melted as soon as it entered her mouth. Soon, a warm aura surged between her chest and abdomen, spreading to her limbs and bones. Her body, which was originally cold, instantly recovered a lot. Chu Luiwa let out a long breath. This fire spirit pill was something she tried to refine when she flipped through the doctor's book of medicine that Elder Wanjing had given her during her free time. Originally, she had planned to show this pill to him when she had time so that he would know that she had broken through to become a doctor. But now, the medicinal pill was for her to consume first. It was used to nourish her body, dispel the cold, and promote blood circulation. Previously, she had stayed in the spring for too long, and her body was cold. At one point, even the blood and force in her body had frozen. Later on, although Rongxiu's help had melted all the frost on her body, there was still a trace of cold energy left in her body. The longer this cold energy stayed in her body, the worse her situation would become. Now that she finally had time, she could completely expel it and remove one of the worries in her heart. She closed her eyes. The water droplet in her dantian seemed to have broken free from the control of the black palm and returned to its normal speed of circulation. Waves of force continuously spread out from it, healing the wounds all over her body. Perhaps because she had broken through to become a high god again, her body's healing speed was much faster than before. In just a short while, some of the wounds had already stopped bleeding and formed scabs. But she still did not dare to let down her guard. Her eyes were fixed in front of her. She suddenly remembered that when Debeo accompanied her to the Divine Ruins world, he did not like to fight. There seemed to be something hidden behind it. But as to what the reason was, she did not know. Even though she had recovered her memories. In fact, she had met Debeo and the others in the Red Moon Desert. And before that, they had never left the Red Moon Desert. Naturally, she did not know that Debeo had such a taboo. She just did not know how Debeo planned to deal with this situation today. Swoosh! Suddenly, several streaks of purple light flew out from the scale armor. In the blink of an eye, they spread out in midair. Chu Luiwei immediately looked over. She saw several flowing lights intertwining and flying downward. Then, the sky shuttle array that had been forcibly shattered by the black palm gathered together again. The broken parts were reconnected by the purple flowing lights, and the distorted parts were corrected bit by bit. Chu Luiwei suddenly realized something. Debeo was actually repairing the sky shuttle array. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1550. Rebuilding a new sky shuttle array would consume an unimaginable amount of manpower and resources. Even when Lingxiao College was first built, it had taken everyone's combined efforts to complete it. Now, with Debeo's strength alone, it was even more difficult to complete it quickly and efficiently. Moreover, he was wary now and could not act rashly. Repairing the sky shuttle array was undoubtedly the best choice. Very quickly, the shattered sky shuttle array began to recover to its original state. Purple and silver light intertwined, almost blinding everyone's eyes. The black palm reacted and immediately attacked again, trying to destroy the sky shuttle array. However, Before he could get close, there was an invisible pressure that kept him at bay. It was the shocking power of the purple scale armor. The black palm tried several times, but it could not do anything. The aura on it began to become frantic. The Sky Shuttle Array had suppressed it for tens of thousands of years. It finally had a chance to break free. How could it go back? But things were gradually developing in a direction that was out of its control. It had never imagined that the previous owner of the Sky Shuttle Array would actually return. In the past, it could not be completely suppressed by the Sky Shuttle Array alone. That was why Lingxiao College had insisted on drawing Tianlei into the spring all these years, in order to add some power to the Sky Shuttle Array. Now that the power of Tianlei had been largely exhausted, it finally found a chance to break free. Who would have thought that? He was back again. Most importantly, his strength seemed to have become much stronger than it was back then. So much so that even if he did not appear now and did not use his full strength, he could still easily repair the Sky Shuttle Array and make it stronger. Woo-woo. The blood-red totem on the black palm surged, mixed with a sharp and mournful wail that made one's heart tremble. Seeing that it could not stop the Sky Shuttle Array, it turned around and aimed at Chu Luiyue again. It went forward without hesitation and grabbed at Chu Luiyue. But at that moment, a purple stream of light flew over and wrapped around Chu Luiyue's waist. With a light pull, Chu Luiyue's body floated and landed in the center of the Sky Shuttle Array in the blink of an eye. Chu Luiyue looked down. The enormous Sky Shuttle Array was right beneath her feet. Streaks of flowing light intertwined and gradually returned to its original appearance. Chu Luiyue had never seen the Sky Shuttle Array before. She only remembered that she seemed to have been attacked by several heavenly shuttle formations under the spring. Rongxiu was also injured because of this. Unexpectedly, she was already able to stand at the center of the Sky Shuttle Array in such a short time. It was as if his feet were stepping on solid ground, making him feel very secure. What made Chu Luiyue feel even more at ease was that the Sky Shuttle Array was filled with Debao's aura. She knew that he would never harm her. After landing on the Sky Shuttle Array, the black palm could no longer approach Chu Luiyue. At that instant, a familiar voice entered his ears. "Little you, watch the formation." Even though she had tried her best to be sharp and cold, she still couldn't hide that soft and sweet cuteness. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. "Debao." Her lips moved slightly, and she almost shouted out loud. But she suppressed it in the end. Debao clearly had his own considerations for not appearing. He should be the one most worried about the Academy's crisis. But even under such circumstances, he still didn't appear personally. It was clear that there was more to it. Chu Luiyue suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and nodded calmly. Then, she looked down at the Sky Shuttle Array beneath her feet. The Sky Shuttle Array's level is extremely high. It's not appropriate for me to appear now, so I can't help you much. If you want to completely repair the Sky Shuttle Array, you'll have to do it yourself. Debao had always been a man of few words, but every time he spoke, his words carried a lot of weight. And this time, it was even more so. A simple sentence exploded in Chu Luiyue's mind like thunder. "What? Me?" For a moment, Chu Luiyue almost thought that she had misheard. She had just recalled her god realm and broken through to the high god level. Moreover, she was injured in the previous battle. Under such circumstances, how could she possibly repair the Sky Shuttle Array? Since you've become a high god again, then you should have recovered your past memories. You haven't forgotten what I taught you before, right? Debao's voice was still calm, as if he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Chu Luiyue choked. "You mean, the Heaven Scroll?" Debao's words were concise. "Didn't I ask you to memorize everything back then?" Chu Luiyue's vision turned dark. She felt a headache just thinking about it. Back then, when she was still in the Red Moon Desert and hadn't known Dabeo for long, he had thrown her a pile of Xian formation diagrams to memorize. At that time, she only felt that each Xian formation was more complicated than the last. Even with her photographic memory, she had to study it for a long time before she could barely memorize them. Who knew that those diagrams were actually his peerless collection? Later, when she entered Lingxiao College, she happened to see the heaven scroll that the elders carefully treasured. Only then did she know what it was. The ones in the college's collection couldn't compare to the ones she memorized in the Red Moon Desert. After all, Dabeo was the true owner of those Xian formations. No matter how many books there were, how could they compare to him? Although the level of the Sky Shuttle Array exceeds your current strength, it is actually similar to many of the Xian formations in the Heaven Scroll. You just have to divide the Sky Shuttle formation into small areas and treat them as the Heaven Profound formation diagrams. She had to break through them one by one. Chu Luiyue frowned hesitantly. Will this really work? Of course it won't work if you just rely on yourself. Every flow of energy in the Sky Shuttle Array is extremely precise and can't make any mistakes. Even if you break through them one by one, you still need to master them. As for this point, I will naturally guide you in a while. You and Lingxiao College, whether you live or die, today, it's all in your hands. Chu Liuyue's heart shook. She raised her eyes and glanced at the black palm. Then, she fiercely gritted her teeth. All right. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1551. Outside the Sky Shuttle formation, there was a layer of invisible pressure that blocked all threats outside. Dabao did this to give Chu Luiyue enough time. He couldn't appear, nor could he make a move publicly. However, he couldn't sit idly by and do nothing when Chu Luiyue and Lingxiao College were in danger. Therefore, on the way here, he thought of this compromise. As for whether this method would succeed or not, it all depended on Chu Luiyue. In the eyes of the onlookers, Chu Luiyue was a little strange. She stood in the center of the Sky Shuttle Array with her head lowered in deep thought. Her expression was serious and her posture was solemn. It seemed like she was looking at the Sky Shuttle Array. But what was there to see about the Sky Shuttle Array? Not to mention others, even low-level Xian masters didn't dare to stare at the Sky Shuttle Array. The pressure was too strong. If one looked at it for a long time, not only would they not be able to understand it, it might even affect their divine sense and cognition. Only Elder Huafeng and the others could barely stare at it for a while, but they couldn't do it after a long time. However, everyone soon realized that something was wrong. Because Chu Luiyue had been staring at the Sky Shuttle Array for a long time. What is you looking at? Elder Bo Yen couldn't help but ask softly. Ever since he knew that it was very likely that person had returned, he felt much more at ease. However, on the surface, she didn't look much different from the others. Elder Huafeng frowned. She's looking at the Sky Shuttle Array, but I remember that when she left the academy back then, she was a Xian King Master, right? Could it be that her strength has increased again? Otherwise, how could there be no abnormalities after staring at the Sky Shuttle Array for so long? A Xian King Master was equivalent to a demigod among martial artists. In Lingxiao College, where geniuses gathered, they weren't considered the top. The reason why Chu Luiyue was able to obtain an extremely good ranking on the Xian Master ranking back then was because she was good at many Xian formations and her combat strength was too strong. That was why she could firmly suppress those Xian Masters of the same level. Even so, her level was still there. There was still a big gap between her and a Xian King Master. She just returned. After summoning the God Realm, she broke through to the God Realm again. As for the others, I don't think I've made any breakthroughs. I'm still the same as before. Elder Bo Yen said with uncertainty. Elder Hua Feng was at a loss. Then how did she? Before he finished speaking, Elder Bo Yan's expression changed. Seeing his expression, Elder Bo Yan looked over in surprise. With one look, he was stunned on the spot. This was because Chu Luyue, who was in the middle of the sky shuttle array, had suddenly attacked. A brilliant ray of light flew out from her slender fingers and gently floated down. In the next moment, the stream of light connected the two broken lines of the sky shuttle array. Perfect fusion. This scene was witnessed by the surrounding elders. There was dead silence all around. Even if many of them weren't mystic cultivators, they more or less had some understanding of this. What level was the heavenly shuttle array and what level of Xian master was she? What was she doing now? Repairing the sky shuttle array with his own strength. Chu Luyue did not care about the reactions of the people around him. This matter was extremely difficult for her to complete, so she had to focus all her attention and not be careless at all. Seeing that the power had successfully merged into the sky shuttle array, Chu Luyue heaved a sigh of relief. Although a few years had passed, she still remembered the Xian formation diagrams of the heaven scroll clearly. Immediately after, a second stream of light flew out from her hand. Elder Hua Feng finally couldn't help but exclaim in shock. She is going to completely repair the sky shuttle array with her own strength. Digression, let me tell everyone a small thing to take note of. In the north, in winter, you must eat before bathing. Today, February went to bathe without eating. In the end, she had low blood pressure, chest tightness, and shortness of breath. She barely managed to come out by holding on to the wall. Then, as soon as she lay down, her arms instantly went numb. It took her more than 10 minutes to recover. Her mind was completely clear about half an hour later. But she's back to normal now, so there's no need to worry. Everyone, please pay attention. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1552. Although Chu Liyue's body was injured, it was fortunate that her mind wasn't injured. Therefore, at this moment, it wasn't too difficult for her to gather her strength and repair the sky shuttle array bit by bit. In her mind, she had already divided the huge sky shuttle array into several small Xian formations. This sky shuttle array was the same as the Xian formations in the Heaven Scroll. They were all created by Debao, so it was inevitable that they would have the same effect. It was precisely this point that made it convenient for Chu Luyue. As she recalled the Heaven Scroll that she had memorized before, she carefully sent out waves of force to repair the incomplete sky shuttle array bit by bit. Everyone was dumbfounded. What was going on? 15 minutes ago, Chu Luyue was still in danger of death and was like a piece of meat on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. How did the situation suddenly turn around in such a short period of time? She stood on the sky shuttle array, and that black palm could no longer approach her easily. Not to mention taking her life, it would be difficult for it to even harm a single strand of her hair. The key was that Chu Luyue actually started to repair the sky shuttle array without saying anything. Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but rub his eyes. How did you do it? After a short period of shock, Elder Hua Feng was even more puzzled and curious. He was also a Xian master, and among the elders of Ling Shao Academy, he could definitely be considered one of the most outstanding ones. However, even he didn't dare to guarantee that he had the strength to repair the sky shuttle array. However, not only did Chu Luyue do it, but she also seemed to be very stable. Elder Bo Yen didn't say anything. He vaguely guessed something in his heart, but he didn't dare to be sure. The other elders also fell silent. Sheng Wanjing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared at Chu Luyue, who was standing on the huge broken Xian formation, with his brows tightly knitted. He wasn't a Xian master, but he was a weapon refiner. He more or less understood how difficult it was to repair the Sky Shuttle array. However, the current situation was simply too strange. "Senior Shangguan, how are you?" A voice came from the side. Shangguan Jing turned his head to look. "Dean Nan, you're too polite." Nan Su Huai let out a sigh of relief. "That's good." Regardless of anything else, Shangguan Jing's seniority was higher than almost everyone here. In addition, he was a Taizu from Chu Luiyue, so he naturally had to be polite. "But you, Shangguan Jing hesitated. How could Nan Su Huai not know what he was worried about? "Senior Shangguan, don't worry. Yu has always done things appropriately. Since she has chosen to do so, then let's wait and see. Maybe it can really solve the problem." Hearing this, Shangguan Jing's expression changed slightly. His eyes lingered on Nan Su Huai's face for a moment. Nan Su Huai's expression was sincere. Compared to the worried and nervous look from before, it seemed like it was a little different. Shangguan Jing's mind raced. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and nodded. "I hope so." Not long after Nan Su Huai finished speaking, he rushed towards Rongxiu. At this moment, Rongxiu was also looking at Chu Luiyue. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. Sensing Nan Su Huai's arrival, Rongxiu's eyes moved slightly and glanced at him. "Greetings, Dean." Nan Su Huai raised his hand, indicating that he didn't need to be so polite. "How are you?" As he spoke, Nan Su Huai had already quickly sized up Rongxiu. His white brocade robe, which was always neat and new, was now tattered and stained with blood. Anyone who saw him would know that he must have gone through a tribulation. Nan Su Huai sighed inwardly. The only person who could make him like this was you, Dean, don't worry. Rongxiu is fine. Rongxiu said faintly. Nan Su Huai nodded. He knew that his thoughts were still on Chu Luiyue, so he didn't continue to ask. "You will definitely be fine. As for you, your injuries aren't light either." Rongxiu paused and nodded. "Thank you, Dean." Rongxiu knew what to do. Some people in the surroundings had already begun to look over. Nan Su Huai's lips moved as he turned to look at Chu Luiyue. Time slowly passed. That black palm seemed to gradually become restless. It had tried to attack Chu Luiyue several times, but it was useless. Even if there were some small energy fluctuations, Chu Luiyue didn't care at all. She had put all her energy into repairing the Sky Shuttle array. She was already very familiar with the Xian formations in the Heaven Scroll, so it wasn't too difficult for her to comprehend the Sky Shuttle array. With Debao's help, everything went smoothly. At first, everyone was still worried that Chu Luiyue wouldn't be able to hold on for long. But soon, they realized that this thought was unnecessary. Because a long time had passed, and Chu Luiyue's expression didn't even change much. She only needed to raise her hand, and it seemed as if she had endless power. Of course, this was mainly because she was absorbing the energy of heaven and earth around her at a faster speed. The water droplet in Chu Luiyue's dantian had already stored a vast amount of force. In addition, it was extremely efficient at converting the energy of heaven and earth into Chu Luiyue's own power. Naturally, Chu Luiyue didn't have to worry about the depletion of force. With Debao's help, the strange power of the black palm was isolated. The feeling of the water droplet being forcefully taken away didn't appear again. Chu Luiyue gradually entered a good state. Slowly and accurately, she repaired the Sky Shuttle array. A trace of white appeared on the horizon. The sun rose, and the sunlight shone down. Just like that, a new day arrived. Many people looked at the gradually rising sun, and their hearts were filled with emotions. That night, no one in Lingxiao College slept peacefully. Everyone was sober, waiting, and suffering. Even now, they were still persevering, and didn't dare to slack off. The Thousand Wine Mountain was already in ruins. In mid-air, a huge Xian formation floated silently. Purple and silver intertwined, shining brilliantly. It was the Sky Shuttle Array. After a night, the originally dilapidated Sky Shuttle Array had been mostly restored. Everyone had gradually accepted it from their initial shock. Even if this matter seemed too unbelievable, but the truth was right in front of them. Chu Liuyue's eyes were bloodshot, and her face was pale. If one stood close, they could even see her trembling body. However, the look in her eyes was still very firm and serious. In reality, she had already exhausted her mind and strength. She was just relying on the water droplet to hold on. Now, only a small piece of the Sky Shuttle Array needed to be repaired. Once it was done, that hand could be suppressed again. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, gritted her teeth, and sent out the last ray of light. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1553. Sensing that something was amiss, the black palms suddenly tore open space and tried to escape. Nan Su Huai's expression hardened as he swung his sleeves. The torn space was actually mended again. Nan Su Huai's strength was inferior to the other party, but this was Lingxiao College, which had been heavily guarded for thousands of years. Other than the barrier outside the college, there were also many precautionary mechanisms inside the college. It wasn't that easy to enter and exit Lingxiao College. At this moment, a roar suddenly sounded. Everyone looked up and saw that the purple and silver Sky Shuttle Array had been completely repaired. Many of the nodes were faintly glowing with a reddish-gold color. It was obvious that Chu Liuyue's power had condensed on this Xian formation. Compared to the previous Sky Shuttle Array, this one's aura was obviously more powerful. Chu Liuyue held her breath. Her ears were filled with silence, and she could only hear the sound of her heart beating violently. Thump. 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 Her heart felt like it was about to jump out of her chest. At this moment, she was exhausted, but looking at the Sky Shuttle Array under her feet, her intense joy and excitement made her feel much better. Her eyes were bloodshot, but they were unusually bright and as bright as the sun. Not to mention others, even she was filled with uneasiness and apprehension before this. But in the end, everything was completed smoothly. In the eyes of others, this might be an extremely inconceivable thing. But only Chu Luiyue knew that her success this time didn't mean that she had broken through as a Xian master. It didn't even mean that her strength in this aspect had increased. It was all because of the right time, place, and people. In this world, other than Debao, no one was more familiar with the Xian formations of the Heaven Scroll than her. And in her body, there was that heaven-defying water droplet. Plus, with Debao's guidance, it was really too coincidental. "Girl, it's not over yet." Debao's voice fell into her ears. There was a hint of hoarseness in his soft and cute voice. Obviously, although Debao didn't appear this time, he was still very worried. This night, the most difficult one wasn't Chu Luiyue, but him. "I know." Chu Luiyue nodded with a firm expression. His eyes were a little more dignified. Now, she had only repaired the damaged parts, but whether this Sky Shuttle Array could still operate normally, she would have to test it out. "The energy in your body has been depleted. You can't activate the Sky Shuttle Array again." He had to think of another way. Debao's words made Chu Luiyue worry. "Then, take out the 2 Tian baby." Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before he summoned the heavenly square cauldron. A small transparent square cauldron sat quietly in his palm. Looking from the outside, it was completely translucent, and colorless karmic fire burned inside. But only Chu Luiyuan knew what was hidden inside. Remember, just take one. Chu Luiyue did as he was told. With a thought, a fingernail-sized heaven-wrecking holy seed floated out from within. It was a shuttle-shaped object with two pointed ends and a small round belly in the middle. At first glance, it looked very ordinary. As if sensing that the two Tian baby had been summoned, the other one in the cauldron became restless and wandered around restlessly. Chu Luiyue put away the heavenly square cauldron and held the two Tian baby in his hand. Countless onlookers saw Chu Luiyue's subtle movements. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. What did she take out from the heavenly square cauldron? I didn't see clearly, but it seemed to be a small thing. Tisk, if it's hidden in the heavenly square cauldron, it must be something extraordinary. Maybe it's a rare treasure. That makes sense. Sigh. Speaking of which, if this is true, then Shang Wanyu has too many trump cards, right? Humph, she even repaired the sky shuttle array. What's so strange about her having more treasures? Don't forget that she's not Chu Yu now, but Shang Wanyu. She's the dean's disciple, the princess of the Yuntian Tower, the descendant of Shang Wanjing. Any one of these identities would be envied by the world. Such a huge gap made people feel powerless even if they were jealous. Chu Luiyue ignored the chaotic discussions around her. She held the two Tian baby tightly and stared at the black palm not far away from her. In the next moment, she suddenly injected the last of her force into it. Chi! She suddenly felt a sharp pain in her palm. Chu Luiyue opened her hand. It was the two Tian baby that had cut her hand. Blood filled the air. The heaven-wrecking holy seed quickly absorbed the bloodstains, and its entire body turned red. It looked like a translucent red jade. Suddenly, the two Tian baby began to tremble slightly. Chu Luiyue felt something and pursed her lips slightly. She had only heard about the two Tian baby from Taizu. She only knew that it was an extremely precious treasure, but she didn't know the details. Roughly calculating, she had already obtained the heaven-wrecking holy seed for a very long time. But from the beginning, the two Tian baby had been suppressed in the heavenly square cauldron and hadn't caused any trouble. If it weren't for Debao's reminder, Chu Luiyue would have almost forgotten that she had this thing. Bang! Above the heaven-wrecking holy seed, a small opening suddenly split open. A tender green leaf slowly grew out of it. The two Tian baby was small, so the leaf was naturally smaller. It was only the size of a soybean. But the color was tender green, very plump, and there were thin veins on it. It looked full of vitality. Chu Luiyue looked at it curiously. So, the two Tian baby could grow. She couldn't help but reach out and touch the leaf. At this moment, the small and delicate leaf suddenly swayed gently. Whoosh! Chu Luiyue suddenly heard a sound in her ear. She looked back, and a flash of shock flashed through her eyes. Behind her, in the originally clear sky, a wave suddenly appeared. They were like waves rolling over the ocean. Those waves were also snow-white in color, and they were vast and mighty as they swept over. This was a tide formed by the condensation of the energy of heaven and earth. Generally speaking, the energy of heaven and earth would only condense into a white mist when it was pure to a certain extent. If one wanted to condense it into a watery state, the requirements were even stricter, and it couldn't be obtained easily. But now, this tide had appeared so easily. Suddenly, an absurd and bold idea flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. She subconsciously turned back and lowered her eyes to look at the two Tian baby in her hand. Could it be? The green and tender leaf swayed gently once again. Whoosh! The tide formed by the condensation of the energy of heaven and earth rushed over at an even faster speed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1554. In the sky, white waves surged and rolled over. Seeing such a commotion, the onlookers within the Spirit Firmament Academy all widened their eyes in shock. That was, Tu Tian baby. Nan Su Huai was the first to react. He looked at Chu Liyue's palm again. From here, he could see that it was a small shuttle-shaped object. A small bud had sprouted on it, and it looked green and cute. However, it was this seemingly cute and harmless little thing that easily gathered the energy of this world, condensing it into a tide that covered the sky and covered the earth as it rushed over. Crash! Then, the huge sky shuttle array was drowned by the white waves. Chu Liyue moved her feet and was about to leave when she suddenly saw the frightening force split into two when it reached her. The white waves passed by her side. It was very powerful, and its aura was awe-inspiring. However, it was like a gentle breeze brushing past her, without any fierceness. Chu Liyue paused and blinked. She subconsciously looked at the Tu Tian baby in her hand. This energy tidal wave was indeed caused by it. In an instant, the sky shuttle array, which was glowing, had an abundant amount of energy flowing into it. The white waves condensed from the energy of heaven and earth were quickly annihilated by the sky shuttle array. In an instant, the sky shuttle array shone brightly. Crack! With a slight sound, the sky shuttle array began to rotate slowly. Chu Liyue sucked in a cold breath. It was activated just like that. Although she didn't see it with her own eyes, she knew that many elders had been mobilized to activate the sky shuttle array. Everyone worked together to summon the sky shuttle array and activate it. But now, the Tu Tian baby had only gently waved a leaf, and it actually, not only Chu Liyue, but almost everyone who saw this scene was shocked speechless by the scene in front of them. It was not that they had never heard of the heaven-wrecking holy seed. As a legendary treasure, the Tu Tian baby was extremely mysterious, and very few people had seen it. Most people would at most have heard some relevant rumors, but they knew very little about it. Who would have thought that not only would they see it, but they would also witness its power with their own eyes? The sky shuttle array began to rotate, and the light on it became even more resplendent. Woo-woo! A sharp wailing sound came from the black palm once again. Chu Liyue looked up and his pupils shrank. Blood-colored veins bulged on that hand, making it look extremely sinister and terrifying. It seemed like he wanted to escape. Suddenly, the black palm swatted viciously at Chu Liyue. The pressure this time was even more terrifying than any of the previous times. Lass! Retreat! De Bao immediately shouted. Chu Liyue was already prepared. With a tap of his toes, he quickly retreated. The sharp nails on the black fingers brushed past her face. A faint stinging pain came from Chu Liyue's face, and in an instant, a bloody scar appeared. But she didn't have time to care about that. She used the fastest speed she had ever used in her life to retreat. Pitter-patter. With a series of crisp cracking sounds, the void above the sky shuttle formation collapsed one after another. Even the invisible force boundary that had protected Chu Liyue was shattered. Then, the black palm landed heavily on the sky shuttle array. The two forces collided violently, and the heaven and earth almost shook. After a short moment of silence, the violent forces rolled out in all directions. Chu Liyue was the first to bear the brunt. Her chest felt heavy, and her body flew back uncontrollably as if it had been hit by something. Suddenly, a gentle force wrapped around her waist. Chu Liyue relaxed and let herself fall into the familiar embrace. The familiar cold fragrance wafted over, instantly calming her intense heartbeat. Nan Su Huai's expression turned serious. Everyone, listen to my order. Set up the force boundary. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved and took the lead to run. At the same time, a strand of vigorous origin energy swiftly gushed out from the center of his palm. The elders immediately reacted and took action one after another. Streams of origin energy intertwined and formed a huge force boundary in the air in the blink of an eye. Boom! 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 The two forces fought fiercely, and the aftermath spread out and hit the force boundary. The force boundary began to shake violently, and even the nearby mountains were affected. For a moment, the mountains shook, and huge rocks rolled down. Shengguan Jing and Elder Meng also took action. The forces inside were still colliding and swallowing each other, and the aftermath was endless. However, with their help, the force boundary that was about to shatter was finally stabilized. At this moment, the sky shuttle array suddenly spun faster. Countless streams of light shot up to the sky and bound the black palm tightly. Then, crazily strangled it. The palm began to struggle violently, but it couldn't break free. Many strangulation marks appeared on the palm. Gradually, scarlet blood gushed out from it. The sharp and shrill cry almost penetrated everyone's eardrums. This time, even the many students who were watching in the distance heard this strange sound. Everyone's expression changed slightly. This thing was really strange and sinister to the extreme. Fortunately, the sky shuttle array this time was much stronger than the previous one. Not only was it not destroyed, but it gradually gained the upper hand and started to counterattack. At this moment, every second became incomparably torturous. After an unknown period of time, only a loud bang was heard. Finally, the black palm was completely crushed. The purple and silver light on the sky shuttle array enveloped it. Immediately after, everyone saw that the huge black palm was instantly torn into pieces. Strangely, no scarlet blood splattered out. Those black pieces of flesh quickly burned and finally turned into black smoke, disappearing in an instant. Only a thick, sweet and fishy smell filled the air and didn't dissipate for a long time. Chu Luyue half-turned and looked at Rongxiu. At this moment, she was in a very sorry state, and there was a bloody wound on her face. She looked very haggard. However, her eyes were as black as jade and as bright as stars. Rongxiu. Her pale lips curled up slightly into a faint arc. Rongxiu's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at her with a heavy gaze. This time, I didn't lie to you. I came back safe and sound. Rongxiu's hands suddenly tightened, but he restrained himself, afraid that he would touch the wound on her body. She reached out, wrapped her arms around his lean waist, and leaned on his chest. She could clearly hear his heartbeat in her ears. There were only a few layers of thin clothes between the two of them. The warmth of his body quickly spread to her body. His ice-cold body seemed to have warmed up. After a moment, a low voice came from the top of her head. You, be good. In the future, stay by my side forever. She gently closed her eyes, and the corners of her lips curved slightly. Okay. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1555. It was an agreement and also a promise. After Chu Luyue finished speaking, she fainted in Rongxiu's arms. She was already exhausted, but she was barely holding on with her last bit of willpower. When Chu Luyue saw that the heavenly shuttle formation had settled the big problem, she finally couldn't take it anymore and fainted. She slept for a month. Jiuheng Mountain. In the hall, a few people sat on both sides. Yu has been unconscious for so long. Why hasn't she woken up yet? Nan Suwai couldn't help but sigh. His eyes were filled with worry. Shengguan Jing paused and said, too much has happened. Her mental and physical strength are already exhausted. Now that she can finally rest, it's normal for her to be unconscious for a long time. Among those present, he was the one who knew how hard it was for the child. In the eyes of others, Chu Luiyue had broken through from the middle stage of the 8th rank to become a great god in just a few months. It was simply heaven-defying luck. However, who knew what she had gone through in the process? Especially when she recalled the divine realm and forcefully broke through to become a great god. Ordinary people might not be able to do it even after decades, but she did it all in just a few months. How could she not be tired? Not to mention repairing the sky shuttle formation and turning the tide. That had almost exhausted all her energy. Nan Suhuai's expression softened when he heard that. What you said makes sense. These few years, that girl must have suffered a lot. Anyway, those matters in the academy have been handed over to them. Let you rest well. It's just that she hasn't woken up yet. In the past month, they would come here every day to sit for a while. Unfortunately, even after using all the pills and methods, there was still no sign of her waking up. They had no idea how long she was going to sleep. That was why they felt uneasy. Elder Bo Yen sat at the side and looked at Sheng Wanjing and Nan Suhuai. He sighed in his heart. In fact, there were many things he wanted to ask. However, Yu had been unconscious all this time and these big shots' attention was on her. He didn't ask any more questions. Among these people, it was obvious that they had a tacit understanding with each other and had never really talked about that girl. For example, why did she leave the divine realm at Pingmin Mountain? Why did she suddenly leave? She left for several years without any news. When he appeared again, he had a completely different identity. She even lost some of her memories. After the Thousand Wine Mountain riot, she insisted on going down no matter what. Was it really because she wanted to make up for the mistake of the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix devouring the power of Tianlei? Other than that, there's also the director's whereabouts for the past few years. Where did he go? And why did he come back at the most crucial moment? In the end, what made Elder Bo Yen the most unsettled was whether that person had returned that day or not. Ever since the incident ended, there hadn't been many people in the academy. One mystery after another, causing people to be extremely confused and filled with doubts. But now, these curiosities and questions could only be temporarily suppressed. Suddenly, the sound of familiar footsteps came from outside the door. They looked up and saw that the person who came in was none other than Rong Xiu, who had been taking care of Chu Luiyue all this time. Nan Suhuai stood up first. Rong Xiu, how's you her? Rong Xiu's expression was indifferent. She's not awake yet. When they heard this, they all looked disappointed. Although they had already guessed it, they couldn't help but feel disappointed when they heard that. However, the injuries on her body have more or less healed. Although her injuries were serious, now that she had returned to the high god level, her body's recovery was naturally much stronger than before. The reason why she was unconscious for so long was indeed as Sheng Wanjing said. She was too tired and needed to rest. That's good, they looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. Although she wasn't awake, it was still good news for them. In that case, we can rest assured. Continue to take good care of her. We'll take our leave first. With Rong Xiu around, there wasn't much to worry about. Rong Xiu nodded. Farewell, everyone. They got up and walked out. Just as they reached the door, they suddenly heard a fluctuation from outside. Rong Xiu's eyebrows twitched slightly as he raised his arm. The barrier of Joheng Mountain opened silently. A familiar figure quickly flew in. Ding! The person who came in a hurry had a worried look on his face. It was Elder Wenxi. Wenxi, why are you here? Nan Suhuai walked out of the door and was puzzled when he saw the person who came. calculating the time, Elder when she should be dealing with the aftermath of the Academy's incident. Elder Wency quickly stepped forward and handed over a palm-sized reddish-gold feather with a frown. Dean, there's a letter from the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. Nansu Huai took the feather. Its entire body was reddish gold and was as hard as iron. It was shrouded in a faint layer of pressure. It was indeed the keepsake of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Yes. And this letter can only be opened by you. Elder Wency added. They rarely interact with humans. Why did they write to us this time? Elder Bo Yen muttered in confusion. Nansu Huai suddenly thought of something and his expression became solemn. He used a bit of force on his finger and the feather flashed. Then, a few lines of words appeared in the air. Nansu Huai looked at it and frowned halfway through. By the time he finished reading those few lines of words, his expression had become completely serious, and a layer of cold air had enveloped him. Not long after, the few lines of words slowly disappeared. The reddish-gold feather also turned to dust and was blown away by the wind. Dean, what did they say? Elder Bo Yen asked worriedly. They stood to the side and couldn't see what was written. Nansu Huai paused for a moment. This is a letter written by the patriarch of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Everyone was shocked. Patriarch? But hasn't that person not come out for several hundred years? I heard that he's very proud and never interacts with humans. As an ancient divine beast, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is proud in their bones. However, this clan leader was the most extreme among them. I heard that a venerable god expert was injured and needed a medicinal herb that only the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has. So they came to ask for it. In the end, they waited outside the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan for 3 days and 3 nights, but the other party refused to see them. In the end, this venerable god expert could only leave in disappointment and was left with an eternal injury. His strength never improved for the rest of his life. When everyone heard this, they all sighed. They didn't even give face to a venerable god expert. It can be seen how proud the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan is. But now, why did this person suddenly write a letter? Nansu Huai said coldly. It wants you, to break the contract with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix and apologize. Digression, I'm going out in February. Today is the 4th watch. I don't want everyone to continue waiting. Tomorrow is the 6th watch. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1556. Terminate the contract. Apologize personally. The few of them were stunned. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had always been arrogant. It was normal for them to be unwilling to accept Yu's contract with a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. But this request was a bit too much. Isn't this a joke? Yu's contracted magical beast had followed her for many years. It had broken through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant to a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. Now, they want to terminate it just like that. Wasn't this a little too overbearing? Elder Bo Yen, who had always been mild-tempered, couldn't help but frown. It was obvious that and Dumpling had gone through a lot of torture to reach where they were today. Now, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had casually sent a letter and wanted them to terminate the contract. How could there be such logic in this world? Elder Wency sighed inwardly. After knowing who sent the letter, he was a little worried. He felt that it must have something to do with But he didn't expect the other party to be so overbearing and rude. They should know about what happened in the academy some time ago. Although Dumpling was born as a 9-colored heavenly pheasant, she's now a true Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. That person naturally has to take care of it. Nansu Huai said. There was no wall in the world that didn't have a crack. Moreover, the Academy made such a big commotion this time. Although they had tried their best to suppress the news, the entire Divine Ruins world probably knew about it now. But they don't have to be so unyielding, right? Elder Wency couldn't help but ask. This letter was written directly to the Dean, but the other party obviously didn't give them any face. It was no wonder that the Dean's face turned cold when he saw the letter. Mao Yao suffered a big loss because of us previously. It might have something to do with it. Elder Bo Yen guessed. He couldn't be blamed for his conspiracy theory. It was just that Mao Yao was extremely arrogant and narrow-minded. It was impossible for him to let the previous matter go so easily. Nan Su Hui nodded. The Great Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix are two great ancient divine beasts. The relationship between them has always been very subtle. Although they have never shed all pretense of cordiality on the surface, there are many secret struggles in private. To them, a contract between their bloodline and a human is definitely not something to be proud of. In fact, it can even be considered a stain. Now, the news of you contracting a crimson gold heavenly phoenix must have already spread like wildfire. More importantly, she has also contracted a three-eyed eagle. When most people heard about this, their first reaction would be shock and curiosity. After all, it was indeed very rare to be able to contract two divine beasts at the same time. But in the years of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, it was bound to make them even more unhappy. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan might be mocked by the Great Void Phoenix Dragon clan because of this. That was why their attitude was so unyielding. Everyone fell silent. Nan Suhuai's words made sense. This matter, not to mention Yuer, even I will not agree to it. Shengwan Jing suddenly spoke. His tone was calm, but his expression was very firm. The other party simply did not place you in their eyes. It was a blatant humiliation. Senior Shengwan, don't worry. You is my disciple. I stand on the same side as you on this matter. Nan Suhuai's expression eased a little. I will personally reply to them and make it clear to them. This matter is absolutely non-negotiable. Yuer is still unconscious at this time, and the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix clan wrote such a letter. It was simply too much. I will go. A slightly hoarse voice suddenly came from the side. They were startled and turned to look. They saw the door was opened, and a slender figure walked out and stood by the door frame. It was Chu Luyue. Rong Xiu's eyes flickered slightly, and he took the lead to walk over. His pace was calm, but his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already walked to the door. Awake? Rong Xiu stretched out his hand and placed it on her forehead. His palm was wide and warm, and that heat seemed to spread from her forehead to her whole body. Chu Luyue smiled slightly. I'm fine. At this time, she was facing the sky without any makeup. It seemed that she had just woken up because she had slept for too long, and there was a trace of redness on her face. Her bright black eyes were clear and bright like stars. Her fine black hair was a little messy, and she was only wearing a thin white undergarment. Rong Xiu quickly scanned her body, and his eyes darkened slightly. Her waist seemed to have slimmed down a little. Rong Xiu faintly replied, Then, he took out a black cloak and put it on her. Suddenly, Chu Luyue felt the weight on her body, and she blinked. She was not cold. Rong Xiu did not stop, and he even helped her to tie the collar carefully. After that, he took half a step back and nodded in satisfaction. It's cold. Don't catch a cold. Chu Luyue was speechless. It was noon, and the sun was just right. She would definitely feel hot with this cloak. How could she feel cold? But when she met his deep and calm eyes, Chu Luyue's lips moved, and in the end, she nodded obediently. Shengguan Jing and the others also came over and looked at her with joy. Seeing that she seemed to be in good spirits, and that the injuries on her face and body were almost healed, they were relieved. We thought that it would take some time for you to wake up. How are you feeling? Chu Liuyue's lips curved into a smile. Thank you, Taizu, Master, and Elder for your concern. Yu has recovered. In fact, she had already regained consciousness a few days ago, but her body was too tired, and she could not wake up. Now that she was almost fully recovered, she could get up. That's good. Nan Suwai sighed softly, and looked at her with a doting gaze. It's been hard on you during this period. Chu Liuyue's heart warmed, and she shook her head. Actually, I should say that I've implicated the academy. Nan Suwai glared at her. Stupid girl, what nonsense are you talking about? If anyone dared to say that it was because of his precious disciple's mistake, he would never allow it. Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh out loud. She knew that she couldn't say this in front of her master, so she swallowed the rest of her words. Rong Xiu knew what she was thinking, and he said softly, everything in the academy is back on track. You don't have to worry. Chu Liyue was finally relieved. She had done her best, and she had no regrets to get the result today. Chu Liyue paused for a moment and looked at Nan Suwai again. Master, did the letter mention the time? Nan Suwai froze for a moment, and then he realized what she was asking, and he couldn't help but frown. He wanted to deny it, but when he saw Chu Liyue's expression, he hesitated. You really want to go? Chu Liyue nodded. Dumpling is my contracted beast, but it also belongs to the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. This time, I have to go. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1557. Shengguan Jing's expression was rather disapproving. The patriarch of the first group of Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenixes has an arrogant temperament. This letter is even more unfriendly. If you go, you will inevitably be wronged. These words were tactful. In fact, judging from the other party's character and style of doing things, if Chu Liyue really did as he said in the letter and personally went to the appointment, what awaited her might be unimaginable humiliation. He naturally couldn't bear for her to suffer this. Chu Liyue smiled and said, Taizu, although Dumpling broke through to become a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix later, according to the rules, since she has inherited this bloodline, she must make a trip back to acknowledge her ancestors. Previously, we didn't have time. Dumpling and I originally planned to go when we were free. Now that their patriarch has written a letter to urge us, we can take advantage of this opportunity to go. I know what you are worried about. Dumpling is my contracted magical beast. I naturally won't agree to the other party's request for us to terminate the contract. This time, I'm going to make it clear to them openly. If you don't go this time, they will definitely not let it go. Things will only become more and more troublesome. Chu Liyue's words made the few of them fall silent. In fact, they also knew in their hearts that what Chu Liyue said was the truth. As long as Dumpling was still a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix and still followed Chu Liyue, they would definitely not sit idly by. From the fact that the letter this time was personally written by their patriarch, it could be seen that they were more concerned about this matter than they had expected. Nan Suwai frowned. But if you go this time, it will be very dangerous. Why don't I reply to the letter and arrange another place with them? Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh. Master, how can that be considered an apology? Nan Suwai didn't care and snorted coldly. The ancient divine beasts have a noble status, but our Lingxiao College is not to be trifled with. How can we let them bully us? Previously, Mao Yao had barged into the academy and caused quite a ruckus. If it wasn't for Chu Liuyue's counterattack, Nan Su-Huai wouldn't have let it go so easily. Even so, he still made a mental note of the great phoenix dragon. And now, it was the crimson gold heavenly phoenix's turn. There was no end to it. It was getting worse. Just stay in the academy. I don't believe that they can come and tear down the entire academy. Chu Liyue knew that Nan Su-Huai was thinking for her, but at this time, she really didn't want to add more trouble to the academy. Master. Chu Liyue paused for a moment and then said thoughtfully. The academy has just gone through quite a bit of trouble and is now at a critical juncture. There's really no need to push the academy into the teeth of the storm because of these things. During this period of time, she had been in a daze and didn't know much about the situation outside. However, she could roughly guess what was going on. The 10,000 Wine Mountain was destroyed, and many of the academy's elders suffered great losses. The current Lingxiao College could not afford to suffer any more setbacks. Shengguan Jing pondered for a moment. I'll go with you. This way, he could more or less be at ease. Chu Liyue nodded. The other party indicated that they wanted to see her. The Taizu's identity was special. Even if she followed, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan would have nothing to say. This would not implicate the academy. Nan Su-Huai still wanted to persuade Chu Liyue, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he saw her firm attitude. Master, did they say the time and place? Chu Liyue asked. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had always been very mysterious. The world only knew that they had always been living in the Divine Phoenix Mountain, but almost no one knew the specific location. Nan Su-Huai said in a deep voice. They gave us a month's time. As for the place, Dumpling has the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, so she can naturally find it. Chu Liyue heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. There was still plenty of time. She paused, and her expression became serious. May I know, where is Jun Juqing now? I want to see him. That Shengguan Yu is really lucky. Yi Wenzhua fiddled with the ashes and the incense burner and said coldly. The air was filled with a faint bitter aroma. I can't believe she survived under such circumstances. He had originally thought that she would not be able to escape this time. She has a lot of trump cards. The two Tian baby played a big role in her escape this time. Jun Juqing stood behind Yi Wenzhua and said emotionlessly. You're right. Yi Wenzhua paused and sneered. The red cloud sword, the heavenly square cauldron, the two divine beasts. Any one of them would be the envy of the world. She alone has all of them. Such luck could be considered heaven-defying. No wonder she could summon the divine realm again and become an exalted god after a few years. As he spoke, he turned to look at Jun Juqing. You, on the other hand. You were about to become an exalted god, but you were delayed for a few years and only succeeded now. Those people in the clan have often mocked you in private because of this matter. He would never hide these words from Jun Juqing. He wanted to let Jun Juqing know that the world was cruel. If you don't become stronger, you will only be at the mercy of others. Jun Juqing lowered his eyes. I know. Master has been worried about you for the past few years. Fortunately, you have successfully broken through, so those people can't say anything. Yi Wenzhua put down the things in his hand. Shengguan Yu has a lot of treasures, but you don't have much either. You must study the Dharma spells and divine artifacts that I gave you. Yes. Yi Wenzhua stared at him. Back then, as the senior brother, I was much more experienced and stronger than Nan Su-Huai. But in the end, the position of the dean fell into his hands. Master's hopes are all on you now. You must defeat Shengguan Yu. I have already lost once, and I don't want to lose a second time. Do you understand? Jun Juqing looked up expressionlessly. I know. Yi Wenzhua looked at him for a long time. I'm warning you. Rong Xiu is useless because of Shangguan Yu. You. Knock knock. Before Yi Wenzhua could finish his sentence, there was a knock on the door. At the same time, a cold voice sounded. Vice Dean, Shangguan Yu is here to visit. Yi Wenzhua's expression turned cold. What is she doing here? A few years ago, when he was still in the academy, Shangguan Yu rarely came here. There must be something wrong with her sudden visit today. Jun Juqing's eyes flickered. Is she awake? Yi Wenzhua narrowed his eyes, got up, and walked out. He wanted to see what Shangguan Yu was up to. Creak, as soon as the door opened, Yi Wenzhua saw Chu Luiyue standing in the courtyard. Strangely, there was no one else beside her. She came alone. Yi Wenzhua looked her up and down with an impatient expression. Shangguan Yu. What are you doing here? Chu Luiyue smiled slightly, and her gaze landed on the figure behind him. Vice Dean, I'm here today to look for Jun Juqing. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1558. Yi Wenzhua turned around and looked at her suspiciously. Shangguan, you should have just woken up not long ago. Nan Suhuai and the others should be taking good care of her. Why did they send her here alone? Moreover, she was looking for Jun Juqing. We had some conflicts before, but we couldn't resolve them. That's why I've come here today to clarify everything that happened before. Chu Luiyue was magnanimous, and her lips curved up slightly. This is your place. You're not worried that I'll do something here, are you? Who are you talking about? Yi Wenzhua's face turned even colder. You can talk it out yourselves. After that, he looked at Jun Juqing meaningfully. Don't delay your cultivation. Jun Juqing nodded. Yes. In the room, Chu Luiyue and Jun Juqing sat opposite each other. The door was open, but the room was shrouded in a barrier. Neither of them was worried that someone would eavesdrop on them. The atmosphere was cold, and the air froze. Chu Luiyue went straight to the point. Jun Juqing, send my father back safe and sound, and we can forget about the grudge between us. Jun Juqing knew that she was here for this matter. Hearing this, his brows furrowed for a moment before he regained his composure. I don't know where he is. Chu Luiyue's eyes turned cold. She sat up straight and her shoulders were ramrod straight. Her black jade-like eyes were fixed on Jun Juqing. Then, a cold smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. It seems that you have no intention of negotiating with me. I really don't know. Jun Juqing leaned back in his chair. Unfathomable emotions surged in the depths of his long, narrow eyes. I took him away to prevent you from coming back. Now that you're back and have recovered your memories, he's no longer useful to me. There's no need for me to hide this from you. Looking at Jun Juqing's expression, Chu Luiyue's heart sank. At first, I ordered people to bring him to the Godslayer Mound. Chu Luiyue's expression suddenly changed. Jun Juqing. God-slaying mound. That was one of the most dangerous places in the Divine Ruins world. According to Chu Ning's cultivation, going there was simply a 90% chance of death. Jun Juqing raised his hand. Don't worry, it's only at the edge, so it won't be fatal to him. What's more, I've been sending people to follow him in secret. What's the point of taking his life? Chu Luiyue suppressed the raging flames in his heart. Although she had never liked to deal with Jun Juqing, she had to admit that his words were not without reason. From the very beginning, he only wanted to use Chu Ning to threaten her. The more this was the case, the more he would pay attention to protecting Chu Ning's life. Since it was you who sent him to the God-slaying mound, why are you saying that you don't know? Chu Luiyue questioned word by word. Jun Zhiqing suddenly laughed. You should ask Chu Ning or yourself this question. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Jun Zhiqing continued. After my people sent him to the god-slaying mound, he has been fine. But just a month ago, in one night, my men were completely wiped out, and Chu Ning disappeared. It was also the day you recalled the divine realm and regained your memory. Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes. Really? Jun Zhiqing gently tapped the armrest with a half-smile. I can tell you honestly that among the people I sent, there was a great god and 3 demigods. They were all strong generals under my command. This time, I also suffered heavy losses. But I don't even know who did it. Not to mention one Chu Ning, even if there were 10 of him, it wouldn't be worth it for me to pay such a heavy price. Jun Zhiqing's words were a little harsh, but they were also straightforward. Chu Luiyue frowned. She knew that Jun Zhiqing's status in the clan was not at the top. This time, he had lost 4 experts, so he must have been under a lot of pressure. He really didn't have to do this. When I received the news, you were already unconscious. Rong Xiao had been guarding Jiuheng Mountain. Even if I wanted to tell you, I didn't have the chance. Jun Zhiqing raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of undisguised sarcasm in his lazy and hoarse voice. Chu Luiyue fell into deep thought. If that was the case, then where was Chu Ning now? You and Chu Ning probably can't contact each other. Unless you can find him, no one knows what happened that day. Of course, perhaps you should also ask yourself, you have offended so many people, and there must be many who want to take advantage of the opportunity to attack you, right? Chu Luiyue looked at Jun Zhiqing coldly. After a while, she got up. I'll believe you for now. If I find out that you're lying in the future, I'll definitely make you pay 1,000 times over. With that, she lifted her feet and walked out. Jun Zhiqing's men were all dead, so they probably didn't leave any clues. There was no need to continue asking. When she walked to the door, Jun Zhiqing's voice suddenly came from behind her. If you hadn't insisted on coming back and stayed with me in the northern underworld, none of this would have happened. Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. Jun Zhiqing's expression was languid. Although he was smiling, his expression was extremely cold. To others, forgetting the past might be a calamity. But for her, it was no different from a relief. Unfortunately, she was too stubborn, and Rong Xiao, he was too indulgent towards her. The two of them looked at each other. After a while, Chu Luiyue suddenly asked. When I left the academy, not many people knew the inside story. Even Rong Xiao didn't know until later. How did you know? The room was shrouded in cold air and the atmosphere was stagnant. Jun Zhiqing suddenly smiled, his demonic aura spreading. I have my own ways. Chu Luiyue knew that she wouldn't get an answer even if she continued to ask, so she turned and left. It wasn't until her figure disappeared outside the door that the smile on Jun Zhiqing's face gradually faded. He closed his eyes and sat in his seat for a while. The atmosphere around him was extremely cold. After a while, he got up and walked toward Yiwen's room. Chu Luiyue was a little upset. She thought that when she saw Jun Zhiqing, she could ask him to send her father back. She didn't expect that something would go wrong. Last time, the contact between her and her father had been broken. Now she couldn't get any news at all. Even if he was still in the god-slaying mound, that place was vast and boundless. Looking for a person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. After returning to Jiuheng Mountain, Chu Luiyue wanted to discuss with Rong Xiao, but found that Rong Xiao wasn't there. He was probably in the Donghuang Bell Tower. Chu Luiyue thought so and returned to her room. It was already evening. The afterglow of the setting sun shone in through the window, and the room was golden. Chu Luiyue frowned and thought for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. She had to put the matter aside for the time being. She held her breath and closed her eyes. In her dantian, a gorgeous water droplet was quietly suspended. Chu Luiyue's mind moved, and the water droplet's shape changed, and in a flash, it became a broken page. It was clear and bright, and full of colors. Digression, 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1559. I don't know where the remaining pages are. Chu Luiyue muttered softly. Back then, in order to hide them, she didn't hesitate to suppress the divine realm and take the risk to return to Tianling. She even lost her life for this. Now that she was back, she had to continue looking for the remaining pages. If she could find all the items, many problems might be solved. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Chu Luiyue collected her thoughts and got up to open the door. Rongxiu. The person outside the door was Rongxiu. It seemed that he had just returned. However, his expression didn't look right. Chu Luiyue asked curiously. You. What's wrong? Rongxiu took her hand and returned to the room. After standing still in the room, he looked at Chu Luiyue and said in a deep voice, Patriarch is unconscious. Chu Luiyue was stunned. It took her a moment to realize who he was talking about. Patriarch Bailey. Rongxiu nodded slightly. Umo came just now and personally delivered the news. No wonder he wasn't here just now, Chu Luiyue frowned. When did this happen? Why did he faint all of a sudden? More than a month ago in Fangzhou City, he was clearly fine. How long had it been? Rongxiu shook his head. Umo said that after he returned to Yuntian Tower last time, he had been staying in his residence and didn't come out. At first, the people below didn't notice that something was wrong. It was only later that Elder Yu Jing had an urgent matter to report and didn't open the door for a long time that they became suspicious and forced their way in. Elder Yu Jing immediately informed Umo and asked him to come over personally. This was a serious matter. Of course, someone had to report to Rongxiu. Chu Luiyue's heart sank. In other words, no one knew when Patriarch Bailey fell unconscious. And the reason is unknown. Rongxiu paused and his voice turned cold. The news hasn't been suppressed. Now, all the higher-ups of the Yuntian Tower know about it. This included the patriarchs of the 28 divisions. Chu Luiyue understood almost instantly. Did someone suspect you? Rongxiu's thin lips curved slightly. Other than me, I don't think there's anyone who wants to do this more than me. Although he was smiling, the corners of his eyes were cold. Right now, all the elders are waiting for me at the Yuntian Tower. They plan to investigate this matter thoroughly. They claim to be investigating the truth, but it was obvious that they were here for him. Everyone knew that Bailey Jun and Rongxiu had always been on bad terms. Previously, they had tried to cover it up a little. However, the last time in Fangzhou City, both sides had completely fallen out with each other. Now that something had happened to Bailey Jun as soon as he returned, everyone would naturally cast their suspicious eyes on Rongxiu. Even though Bailey Jun had lost his reputation, he was still the patriarch of the Yuntian Tower. If something had happened to him, he would not let it go easily. Needless to say, there might be someone who wanted to take advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed tightly. Then you should, I'll go back for a while. Rongxiu pulled her into his arms and gently rested his chin on her forehead. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. He had originally planned to go to the Divine Phoenix Mountain with her. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. A faint fragrance slowly spread in her chest. Her heart instantly calmed down a lot. Don't worry, I can handle my own matters. As for the Yuntian Tower, Patriarch Bailey has a high status after all. If he didn't set up the trap himself, then someone else must have taken the opportunity to frame you. This was very different from Rongshio's forceful rise to power and power. If Rongshio's murder of the Patriarch was confirmed, it would become a stain that could never be washed away. He could not give face to the Patriarch, and he could also make the Patriarch a mere figurehead, but he could not be accused of murdering the Patriarch. Rongshio nodded. He did have a lot of power in the Yuntian Tower, but it was inevitable that there would be people who would harbor evil intentions. Some things have to be cleaned up sooner or later. Rongshio lowered his head and kissed her gently between her eyebrows. Chu Luiyue wrapped her arms around his waist. Then why don't we make a promise? Whoever solves the problem at hand first will go to the other person. Rongshio cupped her face and kissed her lips. Okay. Rongshio did not waste too much time and soon left with Yumo. After Chu Luiyue packed up simply, she went to Phoenix Celestial Mountain with Shengguan Jing the next day. Originally, Nansu Huai also wanted to tag along, but considering that the Spirit Firmament Academy had been in a lot of trouble recently, it was time for Nansu Huai to take charge of the overall situation. Furthermore, she did not want to implicate the academy again, so she tactfully declined. After a month of recuperation, Dumpling's injuries were almost healed. Under its lead, Chu Luiyue and the others left the college and went straight to Phoenix Mountain. Phoenix Mountain had always been mysterious to the people of the Divine Ruins world. In recent years, they had been keeping a low profile, so everyone was curious. Rumor had it that tens of thousands of years ago, the Great Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix were born at the same time. One ice and one fire, opposing each other. In the long years, the bloodlines of the two ancient divine beasts gradually diverged and gave birth to several divine beasts. But in terms of bloodline status, these two were still the highest. It was also because of this that the characters of these two great clans were extremely arrogant. Without permission, humans could not easily set foot on their respective territories. Chu Luiyue had never thought that she would go to Phoenix Mountain to apologize one day. Of course, that was just a euphemism. She knew better than anyone what awaited her on this trip. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1560. The Phoenix God Mountain did not have a transport formation connecting it to the outside world. Hence, Chu Luiyue and the rest followed Dumpling on foot. It was a long journey. After sleeping for a month in the academy, Chu Luiyue's injuries were mostly healed. Now that she had broken through to the high god level, her strength had improved greatly in all aspects. Naturally, her speed was much faster than before. Even so, they had walked for 10 days, and they were only halfway there. The further they went, the more barren the environment became. At first, they could still bump into a few people on the way. However, after a while, there was basically no one around. Just like that, they finally arrived after another 8 days of arduous trekking. Looking at the vast and boundless sea before them, Chu Luiyue and Shengguan Jing were stunned. This is the Phoenix God Mountain. Chu Luiyue spoke with some uncertainty. Behind them was a vast expanse of wilderness, and in front of them were surging waves. It was noon. The brilliant sunlight shone on the surface of the sea, making it sparkle. At a glance, it was a sea of blue. However, there was not even an island, let alone a mountain. It was empty, silent, and desolate. Only the sound of the wind brushing the surface of the sea could be heard. Other than that, there was no other sound. More importantly, there did not seem to be any living beings here. Dumpling crouched on her shoulder and nodded vigorously. Although it had never been here before, after breaking through to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, the memories and power from its bloodline allowed it to find this place naturally. This was indeed the Phoenix God Mountain. Dumpling blinked. Then, it flapped its wings and flew up. Screech! A clear screech reverberated in the distance. Look! Shangguan Jing suddenly cried out in surprise. Chu Luiyue immediately looked forward. She saw that the sea surface was rapidly condensing in front of her. In the blink of an eye, it formed an ice bridge. This so-called ice bridge was actually very narrow. It could only accommodate one person at a time. The sparkling and translucent layer of ice extended forward in a straight line above the water surface. The surrounding seawater was still surging, but it could not move this ice bridge at all. Under the sunlight, it seemed to be suffused with specks of crimson gold. At a glance, it looked like the blue sky was sprinkled with twinkling stars. It looked as exquisite and beautiful as glass. However, Chu Luiyue's heart instantly hung in the air. Because she could clearly feel the powerful pressure coming from the ice bridge. Her sixth sense had always been sharp. Hence, when she first saw the ice bridge, she did not think of beauty. I'll go. Shangguan Jing obviously realized this as well. He said in a deep voice and walked forward. His figure moved, and flew. He headed straight for the ice bridge. However, just as he was about to land, a cluster of scarlet gold flames suddenly sprang out from the ice bridge. The flame was only the size of a fist, but it was extremely hot. Shangguan Jing had a bad feeling. He immediately set up a barrier in front of him and dodged quickly at the same time. However, the next scene made Shangguan Jing's expression change abruptly. When the flame landed on the barrier in front of him, it did not stop for a moment. The entire barrier started to burn. In an instant, the flame rose with the wind. The terrifying heat hit him. A few sparks scattered, leaving several scars on his hand. Intense pain assaulted him. Shangguan Jing gritted his teeth, but he was even more shocked. He was a weapon-refining venerable, and his physical strength was extremely strong. This flame could actually burn him directly. It could be seen that its power could not be underestimated. At this moment, a second flame suddenly shot out from the side. It instantly attacked Shangguan Jing from the front and the back. Helplessly, he could only turn around and return to the shore. As soon as he retreated, the flame quickly stopped and quietly fell back to the ice bridge. If not for the few fresh burns on Shangguan Jing's hand, it would really look like nothing had happened. Chu Luiyue immediately walked over. Taizu, are you all right? Shangguan Jing shook his head. I'm fine. It's just some flesh wounds. But... He frowned and looked forward. Even he found it difficult to pass through, let alone Chu Luiyue. At this moment, a vast and indifferent voice suddenly came from afar. Except for Shangguan Yu, no one else is allowed to take a step into the Phoenix God Mountain. The voice seemed to have traveled through time and space and arrived with wind and frost. Chu Luiyue's chest felt stuffy. Her temples were throbbing and her eardrums were vibrating. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling at this moment and was about to burn her. She was shocked. She hurriedly calmed her mind and bit the tip of her tongue. The sweet and fishy taste spread between her lips and teeth. The intense pain finally woke her up. She took a deep breath and raised her eyes to look forward. This was the voice of the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Shangguan Jing's expression also changed. They had just arrived, and the other party had already taken them down a notch. It was obviously intentional. Dumpling flapped her wings and stood in front of Chu Luiyue. Her black eyes were filled with anger and fighting spirit. Screech! In this clear and bright cry, there was undisguised hostility. No matter who it was, if they wanted to make things difficult for her, they would be going against it. Breaking through halfway, you really lack discipline. The voice was suddenly furious. Are you going to defy the power of your bloodline for this lowly human? As soon as he finished speaking, the sky changed color and the wind howled. On the surface of the sea, huge waves were instantly swept up. They surged over. Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1561. Whoosh! The sound of something tearing through the air was heard. Light flickered on Dumpling's body, and it instantly transformed from that petite and dainty appearance to a huge figure. Its wings flapped, and the wind howled. It charged straight ahead. Reddish-gold flames suddenly burned around its body. The next moment, these flames surged out crazily and actually rapidly condensed into a wall of fire, blocking the monstrous waves. Flames and seawater intertwined, emitting an ear-piercing sound. Chu Liuyue's heart clenched. This was clearly not ordinary seawater, and the pressure it contained was extremely heavy. Dumpling's injuries had just recovered, and it was clearly not easy to deal with this scene. All of a sudden, Tuanzi changed its direction and rushed directly toward the waves. The reddish-gold figure forcefully passed through it. Suddenly, a hole was torn in the wind and waves that had been stirred up. And with that place as the center, the flames started to burn even more crazily. The seawater started to evaporate rapidly. Before long, the waves receded, and the sea surface gradually calmed down. Dumpling flew back in front of Chu Liyue, still blocking her firmly behind it. The power of bloodline is also considered not bad. The voice came again and seemed to be judging Tuanzi. There was a hint of imperceptible surprise in the words. You're not a natural crimson gold sky phoenix, so your bloodline and strength are naturally slightly inferior. Moreover, your origin was originally a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. To be able to break through to today's realm, you're also considered to have great luck. However, to want to return to the clan, it's not something you can accomplish just by breaking through. This tone was still high and mighty. Chu Liuyue's thoughts turned, and only then did she understand that the battle just now was a show of strength, and also the other party's test for Dumpling. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's emphasis on bloodline could be said to be strict. If one was not a natural Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix but came from other divine beasts breaking through the shackles, they were actually quite discriminated against here. Especially when Dumpling was not even a divine beast at the beginning. In their eyes, this was naturally even more unfavorable. However, the strength that Dumpling displayed clearly surprised the other party a little. However, Chu Liyue actually didn't care much about this. Chu Liyue's sharp eyes saw that 2 wounds had appeared on its body, and at this time, blood was already slowly seeping out. Her brows slightly furrowed, and a trace of coldness flashed past her eyes. Dumpling had already been injured before they had truly stepped into the Phoenix Mountain. She didn't know what the situation would be like inside. This trip was probably going to be much more difficult than he had expected. Sheng Guanyu, do you only know how to hide behind so cowardly? There was undisguised mockery in that voice. If you have the guts, come yourself. Chu Liyue took a deep breath in and looked at Tuanzi. Dumpling, come here. Dumpling did not. Listen. Chu Liyue slightly emphasized her tone. Tuanzi then turned around and moved back unwillingly. She took a step forward and gently caressed Dumpling's body. Senior, you're right. Since you're my contracted magical beast, I'll naturally be responsible for everything. Dumpling's eyes flickered, and it lowered its head to rub against her palm. Chu Liyue looked ahead. Senior, since I've brought Tuanzi back today, I've made up my mind to make this matter clear. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Then, that voice sounded again. You're quite confident. Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. She knew that since the other party had asked her to come over, it definitely wasn't as simple as showing off. If you want to clarify this matter, it's very simple. As long as you cross this ice bridge and come to me personally, I'll naturally give you a chance to speak. Sheng Wanjing frowned. These words really made people feel uncomfortable listening to them. What did he mean by, give you a chance to speak? So if they didn't cross, they wouldn't even have the right to speak to them? Chu Luiyue immediately agreed. Okay. You, Sheng Wanjing said worriedly. Taizu, don't worry. I'll be back soon. Chu Luiyue knew that he was worried and smiled at him comfortingly. You know that I don't do things that I'm not confident of. Since she dared to come, she had already made all the preparations. Sheng Wanjing looked at her fixedly, feeling conflicted. After a long while, he nodded. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luiyue smiled, composed herself, straightened her back, and walked forward. Dumpling followed closely behind her. The moment Chu Luiyue stepped onto the ice bridge, she felt a boiling heat wave sweeping over from under her feet. She lowered her eyes to take a look. Under the clear and transparent ice layer, reddish-gold starlight was exploding into clusters of flames one after another. That was where the terrifying heat came from. She stopped in her tracks, and her body instantly burned with reddish-gold flames. These were naturally Dumpling's flames. With the protection of this layer of flames, the burning pain under her feet was instantly blocked out. Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change as she continued to walk forward. She didn't walk fast, but her steps were very steady. Step by step, she landed on the ice bridge as if she had the strength of 1,000 caddies. She was determined, persistent, and indomitable. Phoenix Temple. The solemn and dignified main hall was solemn. An old man stood in the center of the main hall with his hands behind his back. A huge ball of light floated in front of him. An illusion appeared in the ball of light. Above the vast and boundless sea, a woman was walking slowly. Behind her, a reddish-gold heavenly phoenix was following closely. As an ancient divine beast, it's actually so servile to the human race. How embarrassing. Clan leader, that's just a reddish-gold heavenly phoenix that broke through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Even if it has the bloodline of the clan, it shouldn't be much. Why did you spend so much effort to lure them here? Behind the old man, there were a few clan elders standing. They all had disapproving looks on their faces. Such behavior is no different from betraying the clan. In my opinion, we should kill both the human and the beast. Digression, sorry, it's a little late. Tomorrow at 12:00 mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1562. Yi Zhao was silent for a moment before he said calmly, anyone with the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan must acknowledge their ancestors and return to the clan. This is the rules set by our ancestors, and no one can go against it. As soon as he said this, the elders behind him looked at each other in dismay. Moreover, in recent years, the bloodline of the clan has been gradually decreasing. Although this one broke through from the 9-colored heavenly pheasant, it still has the power of the bloodline. As long as its bloodline is pure enough, the advantages of acknowledging it will outweigh the disadvantages. The hall was silent for a moment. What the clan leader said makes sense. Elder Yi Shang nodded in agreement. Although it doesn't have a high background, it's still considered rare to be able to successfully break through from the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. From the strength it displayed just now, its bloodline power doesn't seem to be too bad. As long as its aptitude is good, we'll let bygones be bygones. The one who spoke out first was the first elder of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Gong couldn't help but snort coldly. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has a noble status. Since when did we form a contract with a human? No matter what, it's wrong to do so. Elder Ishang smiled, his eyes indifferent. You can't say that. I heard that it had formed a contract with the Shengguanyu in the past, and it only had a fortuitous encounter in Lingxiao College that allowed it to break through. When it formed a contract with the Shengguanyu in the past, it probably didn't expect itself to break through and become a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. In fact, it's not entirely its fault. It was just a few simple words, but they were filled with the glint of knives and shadows of swords, and undercurrents were surging. The remaining 3 elders exchanged glances and became even more silent. At this time, it was better for them to keep quiet. The person with the highest status in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was the clan leader, Yi Zhao. Under him were the 5 elders, Gong, Shang, Jiao, Ji, and Yu, who were in charge of the clan. But in fact, the ones with the most power were still Yi Gong and Yi Shang. The people in the clan were secretly divided into 2 factions, and they had been fighting openly and secretly for a long time. Now, they were at odds again. The 3 elders had already chosen their own sides, but in front of the patriarch, they would still restrain themselves a little. As a result, it became a private argument between the 2 of them. The atmosphere in the hall was somewhat cold. After pausing for a moment, Yi Zhao said calmly, that human's life isn't important. Let's take a look at the child's potential first. As the clan leader, Yi Zhao had the highest status in the clan, and his words carried the most weight. Since he had expressed his attitude so straightforwardly, the others naturally couldn't say anything more. They continued to look at the ball of light. At the same time, outside the Phoenix Shrine, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had already gathered and were waiting curiously. They already knew that a Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix who had contracted with the human race would return today. It had been several hundred years since something like this had happened in the clan, so it was inevitable that everyone would find it novel. Even though he was unable to enter the Hall of Gods to take a look at the situation, he could still wait outside to receive news as soon as possible. Everyone was discussing something in low voices as they waited. Hey, have you guys heard? I heard that the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix broke through from the 9-colored Heavenly Pheasant. Really? That's really rare. The 9-colored Heavenly Pheasant seems to be only a 9th-grade fiend. Even so, it could still break through to become an ancient divine fiend. TSK, I wonder how strong it is now. If there's a chance, I'd like to see how different it is from us. Suddenly, a cold voice was heard. It's just a lowly existence that was lucky enough to cross that threshold. What's there to be curious about? The surroundings instantly quieted down, and they all looked at the person who spoke. It was a man who looked to be in his 20s. He was tall and straight, and his facial features were grave and stern. After a moment, someone laughed. Ran, it seems like you don't think highly of that newcomer. Ran frowned slightly, seemingly dissatisfied with the words. It hasn't officially returned to the clan, so how can it be called newcomer? Perhaps, it and its despicable master can't even cross the skyless ocean domain. Wanting to spar with the other party now, wasn't he thinking too highly of it? If you have the time, you might as well go back and cultivate properly to improve your strength. Another laugh came from the other side. Then why don't you go back? Wasting time here for no reason. The corner of Ran's mouth twitched, and there was a trace of condescending arrogance in his tone. I'm here to wait for Grand Elder. This time, no one spoke anymore. Who didn't know that Ran was Grand Elder Gong's favorite disciple and had always been highly regarded? Especially when the centennial ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin soon. The most important thing in the ancestral worship ceremony was to choose the young lord. Ran was an outstanding figure among the younger generation, and he was definitely a popular candidate this time. It was said that Gong had been undergoing special training for him during this period of time, and his strength had also improved greatly. He was determined to obtain the position of the young lord. Such a Ran naturally wouldn't care about other people and things. Some people secretly exchanged glances with different expressions. He hasn't become the young lord yet, and he's already so arrogant. I'm afraid he'll be even more incredible in the future. It's all because he's so talented and has Grand Elder's special training. There's no point in being envious. Maybe this young lord position won't be his in the end. Let's see how he'll react when he loses all his face. Although I don't really like him, I have to admit that there's almost no one in the same generation in the clan who can compete with him, right? I heard that Xian has been cultivating with Second Elder recently, but he's young and hasn't cultivated as long as he ran. I'm afraid he won't be able to compete with him. Just let him do whatever he wants. In the future, there'll be someone who can deal with him and let him know how powerful he is. Besides, there's still some time before the ancestral worship ceremony. I'm more interested in that newcomer now. Sigh, I wonder what kind of person its master is. To be able to make it follow so loyally. Even if it wasn't a crimson gold heavenly phoenix before, it would still follow this master. But after breaking through, it wouldn't not understand that this was a big taboo. Not only did it not fall out, but it was also so protective of this master. It's really curious. Skyless ocean. The ice bridge stretched forward in a straight line, as if there was no end. Chu Luyue walked on it step by step, the power in her body was being consumed rapidly. Even with Dumpling's help, she could endure the burning flames under the ice. But the further she went, the stronger the invisible pressure became. Her whole body was bearing this terrifying pressure. Every inch of her muscles, bones, blood, and flesh felt like it was being crushed by something heavy. Gradually, her legs began to tremble slightly, and every step she took became incomparably difficult. The surrounding waves rolled, and white waves swept over. At a certain moment, Chu Liyue's knees finally gave way, and she knelt on the ice. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.